Hello, you're listening to We Thought About Games, the show where games are looked at historically, fondly, and critically. I'm your host, Sid Menon, and on this episode, we'll be talking about Dynasty Warriors, also known as Shin Sangoku Musou, a beat-em-up tactics RPG hybrid. The genre is Musou, as we'll get to. And joining me on this episode is Bohampscious.
Hello, I'm Bohampscious, a true warrior of the Three Kingdoms.
So back in the Battle Assault 2 episode, I said, I'm doing it with just like one person because it's a one-on-one game. And that was less true when I did it again with one guest for Lament of Innocence. And it's so the opposite of true for this one. This is not a one-on-one game at all. It's a one-on-1,000. But I couldn't get 1,000 guests. And I don't want to do it.
That would be pretty difficult. But hey, it did start off as a one-on-one thing, though.
That's true. So Bo, what's your experience with Dynasty Warriors? How'd you get into it?
So I started playing Dynasty Warriors with Dynasty Warriors 4 back when it came out. I rented it from Movie Gallery and played it for like a solid week straight. From there, I was away from the series for a little bit, came back to a 7, then went back and replayed 5. 5 is pretty good.
Yeah. Love 5.
Most of my experience with the series definitely it leans more towards the more modern ones, but I have played the older ones.
Sure. For me, I think the first time I saw it was like for one of my birthdays when my friends came over. Most of the time, we just all played Power Stone 2 the entire night into the morning until we passed out. But one time, my friend Eric brought his PS2. So that's the first time I saw Kingdom Hearts. And then he also had Dynasty Warriors 3. And I remember thinking, I didn't really know anything about Chinese history, so I couldn't keep the name straight. But just seeing the combat, fighting tons of guys, and then seeing that you leveled up. If you play games now, it's so commonplace, but seeing that kind of thing at the time, I was like, wow, and so it's like an arcade game, but you can power up outside of the levels. That's crazy. It's not the first game to do that at all, but it's the first one I liked that did that.
For as ubiquitous as these games have been throughout modern video game history, I don't think people actually really know what exactly they truly are. I think they just think you're just dropped in a big old open field and killing hundreds of thousands of guys with basically no feedback. That's actually not true at all about these games. They're actually much deeper than people realize.
Yeah, and I think they exist on kind of a sliding scale where it's do you want to have a total brain off experience where you just press square? Sure. But on the other side of that, I've seen complaints it's just a game where you press square all the time. And it's it's more fun and the stages go by faster if you try to play it better. And what's the reason for that? And I'm it's more fun. I don't know what to tell you.
That and you don't realize how much the dopamine hits until you get that first 1,000 KOs, and then you're I get it now. It all just clicks into place. It's it actually whips ass entirely that I'm one dude unleashing the power of the Big Bang.
We're going to cover the series, not an individual game, so it's going to be a different approach from the previous episodes. So first of all, what we're going to leave out is spin-offs that didn't really feed back into the series or that are not Dynasty Wars games. So Dynasty Tactics is kind of in the same milieu, and even one of them is called Dynasty Warriors Godseekers. It's a tactics game. It didn't really feed back into the series at all in any way. We're leaving out all the mobile and social games. Stuff like Samurai Warriors does have some intertwining with this, but that can be summed up pretty quickly, and otherwise it is a different sort of evolutionary branch. Also, this is a game series based in feudal Chinese history, and we are going to do our best to pronounce the names correctly. Like, I've looked them up, I've heard them, I've practiced the pronunciations, but like, I should put it this way. I looked at the pronunciation of something at one point, and it said, if you've never spoken Mandarin, you have never used the phonemes in this in your life. So they gave a different pronunciation that's more correct, and that's kind of where we're going to land. But also, because we've been playing these games for so long and heard all these pronunciations, we're going to slip up a few times. You know, I think we're going to do better than the voice actors for a lot of these games.
We're not going to constantly refer to the actually very important historical figure Cao Cao as Cao Cao. Like, we will do our best to pronounce it correctly. I have certainly never spoken Mandarin in my life. I don't know about you, Sid, but I've never done any of that. So, like, you know, we will do our best. It is a thing where you're going to be introduced to a lot of Chinese names. We'll get close, but probably won't hit the dot every time.
Yeah, I mean, this equivalent exists in lots of historical stuff. Like, I mean, any episode of like 3 Moves Ahead where they talked about World War I board games, like about just the Battle of Verdun, where I couldn't keep anything straight, or like which number King Louis this is. Like, so yeah, it's not easy to keep track of Louis Bu betrayed Liu Bei and took Xiaopei Castle, so Liu Bei had to escape to Xiaopei. Like, yeah, they sound pretty close, I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's about the same level of difficulty to me, I think, as other historical things.
Mm-hmm. And another thing to note too is that because the series Dynasty Warriors is based on Lu Guanzhong's Romance of the Three Kingdoms, one of the 4 classical novels of Chinese literature, it's a very long novel. It goes through a lot of history. I think covering everything that happens in the plot line of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and by extension Dynasty Warriors, is probably a bit beyond the scope of this.
Yeah.
Like, we'll give you the broad strokes.
Yeah, and the games themselves sort of split the difference between Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a romanticized version of history, and some amount of reality.
Yeah, it's also important to note Romance of the Three Kingdoms is just that, it's a romanticization. Whereas there is an actual historical record called Records of the Three Kingdoms, which is a more accurate thing, is not translated into English. It's not really easily accessible.
Yeah, so just like for notes, like, I mean, I looked up, you know, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the novel by Lu Guanzhong. It either came out in 1494 or 1522. I mean, it's far enough, I guess, in the past that I suppose there would be that uncertainty, but yeah, it's very long, but it is like very detailed, like people's family relations, how good of a governor was someone when they became, even if they were like a mighty warrior, also the part where they become governor, they're going to talk about how good of a governor they were. So it is more detailed. It's not just like a fantasy epic. It's not also, you know, what really happened, because sometimes good storytelling is not literally really what happened. And I mean, there are obviously issues with that, with, you know, whitewashing certain historical figures, but it was also a very long time ago.
That's something you can actually look at pretty thoroughly, is the various, you know, editions of Romance of the Three Kingdoms and how it portrays Cao Cao by comparison to Liu Bei. So, and that changes a lot. Covering over all that, we would be here for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Which is less than I put into all of these fucking games.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read it, but I did watch War of the Three Kingdoms, which is a TV drama, which is like 100 1-hour episodes. It's quite long, and sometimes it'll be like every episode is a single day of the week, and then the next episode will be like, anyways, 5 years passed.
It'll be like, this guy is 55 years old now. He was 20 last week.
This did inspire game developer Yoichi Arikawa, also known as Ko Shibusawa, to make his own game called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Arikawa was a guy who worked in office software, but he had a passion for games and a passion for Chinese history, so he made a like simulation numbers heavy game. It's called a historical simulation, so yes, you have to manage like the taxes on your villages or things like that, how much you pay your officers, but also there's that element of like loyalty to them. And you play as like a ruler. It's like you play the strategy game player. You're not like a specific guy for most of the series. But then With Romance of the Three Kingdoms 7, they added a role-playing element to it, and they would be kind of on and off with whether the games had this, where you play a specific character. So, like, yeah, you're the ruler, but if you die, and some of them, if you have someone to succeed you, you'll switch to them. But, like, your game's over. You were playing as that person. And they pulled this from their own series of historical RPGs that had different story paths, called the Recoation games, because it's a Koei historical recreation. It doesn't really flow that well. It sounds kind of bad, has bad mouthfeel, but they didn't speak English primarily, so it's fine.
I think it might have actually been, instead of a recreation, it might have actually been a play on the word recognition, or it could have been both. With regards to Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it's actually kind of neat viewing that series as it goes in parallel with Dynasty Warriors, by comparison to how their other strategy game, Nobunaga's Ambition, goes along in parallel with the sister series to Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors. And in a way, their development and their general game feel, they're almost hand in hand. Dynasty Warriors and Romance of the Three Kingdoms feel just different enough from Nobunaga's Ambition and Samurai Warriors that they feel like they're their own thing.
It's notable also that Romance of the Three Kingdoms 7 is the one where they added this more character-focused RPG element. That came out 6 months prior to Dynasty Warriors 2, which was a more character-focused, with RPG elements kind of game. We'll get to that, but there's an important first step. Sangoku Musou, also known as Dynasty Warriors 1 in the West, which is a fighting game, a one-on-one weapons-based fighting game. It was released in February of 1997 for the PS1, and I'm pretty sure the director is Kenichi Ogasawara, based on an interview that longtime series producer Tomohiko Sho, who was a planner on this game, mentioned in an interview with Shueisha. He said, Koei, which was primarily focused on Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Nobunaga's Ambition, was also aware that it had to challenge itself with new things for the coming era, and there seemed to be a trend to make a 3D fighting game. So yeah, this came out in a market that already had like Virtua Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur.
It was certainly of its time. Having played Dynasty Warriors 1 primarily for this episode, it's not a great fighting game.
Yeah, I thought I'd like it a lot more. And because it reviewed actually pretty well for the time.
Do we know if it was a commercial failure?
Not a failure as far as I could tell. I mean, Tomohiko Sho says that like it didn't sell quite as much as he'd hoped, but they got a lot of positive feedback from like players, like postcards. And they were also allowed to make Distrega, which is like another, like a 3D arena based fighting game afterwards. So, and that one didn't do well. That one was a failure, but you know, that, so I think at least this one had enough legs for them to try again.
But yeah, it like Dynasty Warriors 1, it was, these historical figures, it was all about like going low or going high, as opposed to being like strong versus weak or quick versus heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It was certainly a neat idea at the time. It definitely felt novel, but God, I did not like playing it.
Yeah, it just felt really stiff to me, is how I'd put it. I guess it's one of those things where it's like it feels stiff, but it technically works. So like if you could get into its rhythm, I could see it being satisfying for some people, but I couldn't. I'm pretty bad at fighting games that control a lot more fluidly. So with one that's this like stringent, it was pretty difficult. Interestingly enough, like the sort of Koei interpretations of the characters were immediately established in this. So Shahodoin is like mostly portrayed with having his eye patch after he lost his eye, and he would use like a big hodao, like a big heavy sword. And Jichu was instead of like historically he's referred to as this tall, like imposing, strong figure, but I guess they went with him being a kind of funny, rotund guy with a big hammer, and they will never change that. Yeah, the newest game that just came out, he's still like that.
He is like that. He was like that in 1997. He is like that in 2025. Like,
but yeah, as we mentioned, the idea had enough legs and like was critically appreciated enough that they were able to carry the name forward into Dynasty Warriors 2. And From this point on, it's going to shift genre and become a genre pretty much, and a new kind of game. And it's a kind of game that very few developers to this day have tried to make. So sort of like how, in Ace Combat 5's episode, we discussed how the game even works, because there's a chance I might not have played it. We're going to just talk about what Musou games are at all before we talk about the games in specifics.
It is a beat 'em up, it is a tactical game, it's an RPG, and it's all of those all at the same time in a very delicious package, where you are a single officer. It is you versus hundreds, if not thousands, of guys. It can be as brainless or as in-depth as you want. There's a huge combo system that you don't have to just go with the light attacks. It can change your combo up depending on when you throw a heavy attack into stuff.
It's called the charge attack combo system, and a lot of games have this, where there's sort of like, oh, you do one light attack and the heavy attack and it does this move, or you do two. But in this case, the thing that divides them isn't just like, oh, the further in the combo you do it, the better it is. No, they have different functions. So the regular charge attack, when you're not doing anything, will be a character specific move. After one attack, launch the enemy into the air. After two hits, this is a crucial one, is you'll do an attack that is usually a multi-hit, but it stuns the enemy, which opens them for follow-ups. And you can't just chain them in stuns infinitely, because now, an enemy in a stun state will get launched by the next hit they take. They'll get sent flying. But also, if you do the charge attack after 3 hits, you'll send enemies flying, but when they hit other enemies, it'll knock them down. So there's some skill to actually how you apply these, and then also characters can get more moves branching out from that in later games, and they'll sort of specialize as the series goes on into like having different moves. Things like defensive moves will get more complicated. Initially you have a block, eventually you get a way to somersault out of getting knocked back. You can turn enemy attacks aside with parries. If you learn how to do all this stuff, like if you can pay off significantly, there are situations where if you don't do this, like you're gonna get hit, which can make people feel like, oh, okay, well then it's not fair, like I don't know why I challenge the higher difficulties without like spending tons of time grinding. And this isn't something I can do, but I've seen videos of people like, I'm going to start this game at level 1 on chaos difficulty, the highest difficulty, and they can do it. It's doable.
It is a game that, like, when you get to the higher difficulties, it gives you a choice pretty much. It's like it either wants you to get your progression through the RPG elements and have stronger weapons, higher statistics and everything, or it demands mastery of its system. And a lot of games do that, but none of them do it quite as even-handedly, I guess I would say, as Dynasty Warriors does, where you can get by with either of those two approaches, and if you have both, then you're going to just absolutely dominate this game. But like you can definitely get by either way. This approach into how it handles progression also sort of rolls into how it handles mission-to-mission structure. In these, a lot of these games have these big open battlefields. You get into this map and you have objectives that you need to progress to actually win. How you tackle them is largely up to you. Very seldomly will it just lock you into one specific path through a level. Enemies will attack certain places that you had previously taken over, and you'll have to divert yourself to get them back before you press onwards. But other times you might end up being more or less unopposed in your path through the level. And morale as a system is also present. You want your morale to be higher and enemy morale to be lower, and there's lots of ways to influence that. I don't think it really does the game service to just say it's just a beat 'em up, as most people might say it is. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I think that the best moments tend to come when like you have an interesting choice to make, or in some cases, like, if you're commanding officer, like your leader gets killed in the mission, that's a mission failure. Like if you're playing as the leader, usually they'll designate someone else, because they don't want to take that element out where you have someone you need to watch out for. So you can just go on a rampage, even if you're totally outmatched. Well, I just need to stay alive, and then I can just grind this out forever. But sometimes it'll be a mission where it's like, okay, my leader's in danger. I am close to the enemy base. Do I go back and secure the leader to be safe, or do I go to the enemy base and just try to win this before my leader's defeated?
do I risk having to do this entire thing over again for a death or glory attack?
There are lots of other situations that aren't quite as final, like that don't result in a total defeat, but can help you out. So if it's like, hey, we're going to destroy the dam and flood the enemy base, you can fail that and still finish the mission, but the enemy will get a big morale boost, so the enemies will fight back harder and be harder to kill. Whereas if you get the big morale boost, then they won't be as aggressive, their defenses will be lowered, and you can take them out easier. So even within a mission, there's this sort of structure of whether you power up, quote unquote, your character by getting higher morale by achieving objectives versus just tearing through things on your own and trying to figure it out that way.
And it's a good way to mesh both short and long-term progression. You can have changes as impactful as low states as do I go hunting for boxes, or do I just keep on fighting? Or stuff that's more impactful, like do I go after these siege engineers who are going to set up catapults, stop them from building those catapults and making it harder for me in exchange for, maybe not having another resource be available to you. It means that oftentimes you can play these same stages over and over again, but they'll progress, if not slightly differently, then drastically differently.
Yeah, I think some of the best stages where you can have a real like, oh, I'll go this way instead this moment, or this way. And sometimes doing things out of order is even more beneficial. Like it's like having that foreknowledge to be like, okay, these guys will come out of this base to ambush this character later in the mission, but I can run up there now. Maybe not on your first run, but on your second, you'd be like, okay, I've got a horse, or I know we're an officer with the horses, so I can take down, steal the horse, ride up there, take them out, and then I can go back to the other side of the map, and there's not going to be an ambush later, so I won't have to rush to rescue this person later in the mission. It just happens like organically.
Yeah, and in some games, it even leads to an entirely different route. Like there are some games that have what-if scenarios that take into account the different choices you can make during these things. Also, Sid, one thing we definitely kind of glossed over that we need to talk about, the soundtracks for these games are fucking incredible.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like it'd be a genre feature, but since they're all good, unfortunately, sorry, that's got to be part of it now. Like, if the soundtrack's not good, you didn't make a Muso game. I think a lot of people for a while said like, oh, it's like butt rock, like what's in Devil May Cry or something, but it doesn't really have that vibe. Like it's like techno rock, and they do have, they do some like 80s soloing and stuff.
It feels very Jam Project, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, it's just to get you like hyped up, get you excited. I think they have a very good diversity of style. Like, and some of them will be purely like, okay, this is traditional, like Chinese music from the era, and some will be like, okay, this has like a pretty hard rock guitar, but we also have Chinese percussion in it. Especially like the use of cymbals is like very, very strong throughout like whatever genre they go for. And then some of them will be like more electronic, like it's sort of like a techno thing or like an acid house beat. It's great. Like Dynasty Warriors 1 actually had much more music of its time for arcade fighting games, where it had like house pianos and stuff like that. It was I like that soundtrack a lot, actually.
It's a good soundtrack.
They don't even touch on that style again. Like you can play some of the later games with music from Dynasty Warriors 1, and that's it. Just the Dynasty Warriors map takes a lot longer than 2 or 3 rounds in a fighting game, so it can kind of drive you crazy if you just set it to play one of the fighting game tracks and you're on the map for like 15 minutes.
Generally speaking, whenever you're put onto one of these maps, they give you an hour to just fucking go. And rarely ever will you use that whole hour, but they give it to you.
Hey, some missions, depending on what you do and like how much you're willing to challenge yourself, that might be a problem. Not always. Not like you're not signing up for like 6 hours per character or something with each playthrough, but you could if you wanted. That's the thing to always emphasize. If you wanted to. And like we mentioned, there's a lot of skill to be expressed through playing the games. It's not some like totally foreign hardcore challenge run idea to everyone. Like you can get something out of it. Even if you built your character up, like these higher difficulty levels exist to kind of offset the character building. So you get the satisfaction of progression, but it's split into preset difficulty levels. So it's not just gonna scale things to where you are it's gonna be something you say, well, I want to steamroll things a little longer. Like I want to do this mission on hard because I still want to get through it pretty quick and try and get better item drops, versus like, okay, I've really like exhausted this, I'm going to go up to very hard now. And this plays into the character progression thing we've mentioned. In a lot of these games, you'll defeat enemy officers. They might drop a weapon from 3 onwards, but they can also drop items that increase your stats. And for most of the series, these are tallied up after you've finished the mission. You beat up an officer and you get like, attack +1, but a more difficult officer would drop attack +2. But also if you're able to score a really big combo, then it'll double to, attack +8 or something. And then on higher difficulties, the lower levels of these will, like the floor of what these can be will go up. So you're always like building your character up, and you can max them out, pick your favorite character like that. And for me, that's where I always place the end game of Dynasty Warriors, or like any Muso game really, is, I'll try out almost everyone I can, really, unless I really don't like someone's moveset. But then like my favorite character, like I'll do anything I can to max them out. And that's where I'll call it with the game. And I think that's a pretty good way to play them. I don't know what you do, Bo, for like considering it clear, but I definitely don't try to like 100% max everything out.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. The thing about these games is that there is just a ton of content in every one of them. It's like, even the upcoming one, Dynasty Warriors 2, that we're about to talk about, it's, even for what is ostensibly the first game in the series, you can play it a lot like most action RPGs, where you kind of just decide when you're done. Like, you could probably ask 100 people what they consider to be like, finishing a Dynasty Warriors game, and you'll get 100 different answers.
Yeah, because some people, it's just like, oh, did I do the hardest scenario on the hardest difficulty? Like they want like a capstone challenge, or just like, did I see everyone's story mode? I get everyone's endings, and that's all based on history. So you're not finishing everyone's story, be like, well, what happened though to them? It's like, well, they're all dead now. This is what happened. It was a long time ago.
It's 1700 plus years of human history happened, and they have long since returned to the earth. Provided they even existed at all. Like,
yeah. Or was it just someone mentioned in one sentence in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and then someone's like, well, I feel like making this character now, so I'm going to ignore all the people who were explicitly mentioned and talked about to go off this person who existed for one sentence. All right, now we're going to get into the specifics of the series. We're going to move through some like bullet points really quick and then just sort of talk about them. First off, this new series, and this is why if you see like Japanese titles for the games, it's always one number off, because Shin Sangoku Muso 1 is Dynasty Warriors 2, so it's always one number behind. So for all these quotes by Tomohiko Sho from the interviews, I incremented the number so it's not confusing on our end, but like if you read it, it seems like it's one number behind.
Tomohiko Sho says in an interview with Shueisha, a sequel to Sangoku Muso was also being considered, but as the capabilities of the PS2 gradually became clearer, Suzuki-san, or Akihiro Suzuki, who was the lead programmer at the time, came up with the idea for Battlefield. Creating a new, unprecedented game is difficult, and although the game received positive reviews at the proposal stage, the reaction within the company during development was lukewarm. And in the midst of all this, we had people test play the Battle of Hulao Gate, which was the first thing we created as a benchmark, and one after another, people were defeated just when they were close to clearing it, and screams erupted all around. And this made us really happy, and we knew that if we could elicit such heartfelt tries, it would definitely be a hit. And said, I know you've probably experienced this firsthand, just as I have. There's always been at least one time where you get 30 minutes into a mission in one of these games, and someone, maybe not even you, gets KO'd, and as a result, you have to do the whole thing over again. And it's like, I'm gonna do it, but man.
Yeah, it's, I mean, especially for the original Japanese version of this game, like you couldn't save during missions or anything. You had to take the whole run, because this is pulling from Romance of the Three Kingdoms in that way that it's like a battlefield simulation. So you go into it and your character does not evolve or change during the stage. When you clear it, your merits are counted, and that lets you rank up, which is this game's equivalent of leveling up. So you actually rank up to level 1, the highest rank. And if you die during the missions, you don't get anything. And this will be true until Dynasty Warriors 6.
And boy, will you feel it. Like like in this game, in Dynasty Warriors 2 especially, because this is obviously the first version of the Musou genre. They're still ironing stuff out. It's kind of rough. When you're in the middle of a combo, you can't turn. For an action game, that's really rigid. On top of this, all the enemies are pretty aggressive, which is, if you're only familiar with more recent Dynasty Warriors, that's going to be really surprising to you.
Yeah. People ask sometimes when they've played some of the recent ones, like, oh, why aren't the enemies more aggressive? What, are they dumb? And it's like, no, it's because they tried this before and it's really hard. Like, it's doable and it's kind of entertaining in its own way, but like, way fewer people are going to buy a game where the enemies are this aggressive. It's genuinely difficult to like get through crowds of enemies, and they have ranks. So ideally you want to beat the captain, which will demoralize their unit, but they're protected by the unit also, so you can't just easily like, okay, I'm gonna circle around all these idiots and hit the captain every time. Like, yeah, good luck.
Like Sid mentioned, you couldn't save in the Japanese version, but you can in the Western version, because you can get tokens in the crates, which, let me tell you, it's really fun to get one of those tokens when you desperately need a meat bun.
It's like you're one hit away from death, but how would you like to save that?
How would you like to save so that you could be one hit from death permanently?
Yeah, it's like how much sunk cost would you like right now? Where it's like, I don't want to do the whole 30-minute mission over, and then you spend 60 minutes reloading from your one hit away from death save. Being like, nah, I can do it. I just need to not get hit one time by the most aggressive soldiers in the series. Like we said, the soundtrack has immediately changed. Most notable are the contributions by one of the composers who goes by Masa in all caps, Masayoshi Sasaki, and Masato Koike. And I think it's so funny that both of their names start with Masa, but one of them's like, no, but I'm Masa.
I'm Masa. You are Masato. I am Masa.
So many of the arrangements, I mean, they must be pretty good because they actually just kind of redid them for the sequel.
If you go from Dynasty Warriors 2 directly to Dynasty Warriors 3, you'll hear a lot of the same music, and it's because it's really good. And it's especially good that it's good music because you're going to be hearing a lot of it, because Dynasty Warriors 2 is actually pretty hard. Like, I don't know if we've really driven that home enough.
It's interesting, though, because this is a game where, like, the PS2, a lot of people are nostalgic for this, like, innovation, this era of innovation. And I can see a world where it's like, oh, Dynasty Warriors 2 came out. It succeeded because it was like a good idea, to have this kind of over-the-top martial arts thing combined with battlefield simulation. But if it didn't, people would be like, oh yeah, remember Dynasty Warriors 2? That was neat. When we get to Dynasty Warriors 3, Dynasty Warriors 2 is going to feel like, oh, this was basically like a playable alpha of Dynasty Warriors 3.
Dynasty Warriors 3, you can definitely tell they're more or less doing the same thing, but they just improved it in basically every way. You're no longer locked into a direction mid-combo. You can turn. There is an auto-targeting sort of bias, to keep you basically targeted towards the same thing you're going at initially. But now you're not, it doesn't feel like you're locked in place, almost like a survival horror game. And just that alone, like there's all sorts of other improvements in Dynasty Warriors 3, but like just that alone radically changed how the game felt. It made you feel more powerful without necessarily toning down any of the soldiers or captains in there. So enemies are still decently aggressive, but like you have a little more leeway to work with in Dynasty Warriors 3.
It should be noted that for a lot of people, even all these years later, people hold Dynasty Warriors 3 up as a zenith of the series because it has all these improvements over 2 while still maintaining the aggression of the soldiers, especially if you played it at the time. I can't imagine what it's like. Literally, there was nothing else like this. This came out in September of 2001, and this one was directed by Akihiro Suzuki again. And this came out on PS2 and the Xbox. the fact that there are more enemies on screen and they all look better and your characters look better, and they added voice acting, which is infamous, legendary, classic.
It definitely had gamers talking. Just prior to us recording this, they announced a remaster, more or less a remake of Dynasty Warriors 3. If they change the voice acting, I will fucking riot. Like, you can't change it now. It's iconic.
Yeah. I mean, one, we mentioned the mispronunciations. They're not going to figure out how to pronounce these names for a while, pretty much the entire PS2 generation. And they're going to still, even at that point, pronounce some things wrong. So at this point, they're just, I think, guessing.
They're winging it.
Yeah, so obviously Cao Cao's cow because it's spelled CAO. But also, like, Menghuo is like Menghuo. It's not very consistent between people, and it's 2001. Like, especially games that come out in the West, people are gonna make dumb, ignorant comments. But like, this doesn't help in that they're making them sound more ridiculous than they are by pronouncing them in the least cool way possible. There is a great line though from Zhang Bao, who's not one of like the main playable characters. In a cutscene, he says,
"You flaming idiots! Take this!"
You just don't get voice acting of this particular caliber anymore, for better and for worse. Like,
on a YouTube video of it, there was a comment left by someone. It's no other proof, but also it'd be a weird thing to lie about. Sound engineer Scott Miller says they ran out of voice budget, so they just got random staff from around the offices for the remaining unrecorded lines, and he said he was Zhang Bao. On one hand, you'd be like, wow, this is bad, but also they were told, hey, you're going to play a wizard in a game where one guy beats up 1,000 guys with martial arts moves. I mean, what would you do? Not this?
I feel like if you're going to be a voice actor on a PlayStation 2 Dynasty Warriors game, you gotta just put your whole ass into it.
Yeah, it's a thing that I think people understand better now, because at the time everyone's just like, why isn't everyone doing high quality Hollywood acting for all these different things in different genres? It's like, because it's
very expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, and they're trying to be corny on purpose. They're not aliens. Adults recording this. Like we mentioned, like you can turn mid combo. This is the one that introduced doing a somersault to recover from when you've been knocked back, which helps a lot, just not sitting on the ground for a long time.
Makes it feel more responsive. It also makes it feel like you have a defensive option when you do get cornered.
Yeah, just like flip over the people who are attacking you, and then your enemies can also do that as well, so you don't have a permanent lockdown on them. And depending on what difficulty you're on, they'll do it more or less. And this one also introduced collecting weapons. Dynasty Warriors 2 didn't have any like item collection. You just got the stat improvement collectibles on a stage, and then they were applied after you won. This adds weapons with their own abilities. So you'll randomly get a sword that's like the same one as the one you have, but it has more reach. But then there are also higher tiers of weapon that give you longer combos. And a longer combo also means more charge attacks. So like, yeah, you got a longer combo, like one more light attack hit, but you also have one more charge attack finisher. This one will like send enemies flying in a large area. This one will shoot an energy beam that like cut through a lot of guys in a linear fashion. This lets the character, even once you've gotten used to like what sets them apart with their basic moveset, lets them further differentiate themselves. Because a lot of people see this like, oh, it's a guy with a sword, guy with a sword, guy with a sword, guy with a spear, 500 more guys with spears. But this lets them not be the same and actually means that you're not going to be like bored just doing the same thing over and over again with every character as a spear.
Also, in regards to the fact that they ran out of sound budget, this sort of lends credence to it. They just used the Japanese voices for attack and hit sounds. You can have some people who sound kind of drastically different.
Yeah.
Like between when they're talking to a cutscene.
Yeah, someone who's just like a total nerd in English is just like the biggest hunk in Japanese. It's pretty good. This is also interesting in that they introduced Fuchi and Nuwa, who are deities, and they're bonus characters. They don't have any story. They're just unlockables, and they have their own movesets. and then they took them out for a while. Like, they're gonna do this later when they need to like cut down the roster for budget reasons, but this is the only instance I can think of where they just flat out remove these characters. Like, they're not in the later Dynasty Warriors game. Like, their movesets are there sometimes, but they're not there anymore. And I'm not sure why that is. I mean, I guess because they're not in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So even though So, who they introduce later, is like a mystic guy who's lived for like hundreds of years and has magic talismans, like, well, it's based on like a philosopher who was a real guy, so that still fits the remit of the games.
Basically a wizard.
Yeah. Also, just the thing I think is funny, the characters for the kingdom of Wu, Zhou Yu and Sun Ce, they added their wives to this game, and like this is part of the series like tradition where people who definitely didn't do any combat are, you know, characters in this game just because it's more fun and lets them explore their dynamic through like mid-mission dialogue and interaction instead of having it all be in cutscenes, because the cutscene budget is very limited at this point. But funnily enough, Zhou Yu marries Zhao Qiao, who looks and kind of acts like Sun Ce, and Sun Ce marries Da Qiao, who looks and kind of acts like Zhou Yu, achieving the gayest heterosexual marriage I've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah, and I mean, if I recall right, and I could be drastically wrong. It's been a long time since I read any part of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. This was kind of the case in Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah, that book and like the adaptations of it are all like, you know, there's lots of people who are like, oh, were they gay? And I mean, like, in the past, like, yeah, probably to some extent. Just flat out, historically speaking, probably to some extent. But also just like that's kind of the result of these stories. They're like, oh, these men had such passionate interactions. They say brotherhood sometimes, and other times it's like the man I hate most. Like that's like one of my favorite things in War of the Three Kingdoms is Zhou Yu saying, the man I hate most in this world is not Cao Cao, but Zhuge Liang, like the strategist for the Kingdom of Shu. The man I respect the most is not Sun Xuan, but also Zhuge Liang as well. It's like, I think you should have just made out with him, dude. Maybe that would have solved a lot of problems.
I mean, there's not really a classy, romantic way to say I want to get in that dude's butt, sexual style, but like.
Also, just worth noting for the credit song, like the credit song for Dynasty Warriors 2 is just like a straight up house track called "Can't Quit This" with 3 exclamation points. Knock 'em out in all caps, SH Funk mixed by the group MOVE. When I heard it, I'm like, so does the guy who kind of raps on this track have wraparound shades and like a bucket hat and maybe like a rain jacket or something? And like, if you heard that and you're like, oh, I know that type of guy, you know exactly how the song sounds. It's good. It's a pretty good song.
It's right? It's a pretty good track, but yeah, that is exactly what I think of when I think of that track.
For Dynasty Warriors 3, they got a more laid-back R&B track by Yo Hitoto called Shenglu, which means Path of Life. Shenglu Circuit, which is in Chinese. It turns out the singer could also sing in Japanese and English, so I'm surprised they didn't call her back for doing anything like that. I don't know, maybe if they made a TV series out of Dynasty Warriors back in the day, she would have played a role like that. It's very interesting to play like such an amped up game. You know, the soundtrack is like hard rocking and like all this techno, and then you get this real smooth, laid back R&B track. But I think it's good. It's a good come down. Like
it's almost like a miniature bout of catharsis. You know, you've KO'd 20 million dudes. You KO'd the entire population of feudal China 6 times over, and it's like, well, now I need to just chill for a minute.
How about my feelings? That was September 2001. In August of 2002, they released Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. Now, this was directed by Hisashi Koinuma, who, because there wasn't a lot of staff to work on this, he got to work on this. He had the experience, therefore, to eventually make Samurai Warriors in 2004. The other thing that impacted the future of the company is that they came up with this cool system for this expansion pack for this game called Mixjoy. So how it works is you put Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends into your PS2. You go to the menu option that says to use Mixjoy. You have to take out your Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends disc, put in your Dynasty Warriors 3 disc, let it read it, take it out, and then put Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends back in, and you'll unlock the base game of Dynasty Warriors 3 with the Extreme Legends enhancements. There's some stuff you can do in XL on its own, but it's much more limited. Now you might be thinking, the PS2 didn't launch with a hard drive. A lot of models didn't have it, definitely not in 2002, so how do they do this? And, well, it's by a little technique called lying. Because the whole game is on the Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends
disc. The whole thing is on the disc, yeah.
It's on the disc. And they're going to do this multiple times in the future, just so that people who want the Extreme Legends version have to still buy the original so they can make more money, which is going to be real funny considering what happens in the future.
This is foreshadowing of the highest caliber, let me tell you. It was one of those things where when people found out the whole game was on the disc, it really did not fly very well.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some interesting things to it, like you can transfer your save over, and you can actually transfer it back to the original game if you don't want to do the disc check thing and just want to have some of the extra bonuses, because they give you the whole cast when you're playing the Extreme Legends version, along with extra story modes for characters who are in Dynasty Warriors 3 who didn't get them, namely Louis Bu, who's like the overpowered strongest guy, both in the story and the game.
Extremely good at fighting. Basically, no one can defeat him. His downfall is that he is a terribly incompetent general.
So, like, you get to experience that with him, and it's nice because unlocking characters through the free mode that just lets you replay whatever stage you want is nice, but it's sort of just like very piecemeal. I don't know, like, no matter what, even if I really like the character, I just couldn't get into it without like a sort of sequential challenge to go through. So adding that story mode is nice. They also added these challenge modes, and this will be in later Extreme Legends games as well, where it's like, how many guys can you knock off of a bridge? How many people can you fight without getting hit? So like suddenly all those attacks that, had very specific functions are now key to scoring in these challenges. Some later ones will actually give you rewards that like feed back into your character, but for the longest time, this was just like a score attack thing,
Yeah, it's just for fun.
Remember Score?
I remember Score every day of my life.
Also, for some reason, they added a very hard mode where all the officers use their most powered up weapons and have better AI. They also added a novice, easier than easy difficulty, and I don't know.
It didn't need it.
And, who's gonna? One, these games are pretty breezy on the lowest difficulty. There's some friction, but like the thing I mentioned where you can ignore objectives and still win is like so true on easy. You can ignore literally every objective. As
long as your commander die is fine, you're probably fine. That's on purpose, right? They want you to start with the easy difficulty and progress up how you want. Being able to go straight on the chaos difficulty at level 1, that's definitely an enthusiast sort of thing. It was designed this way because they want you to start on this easy difficulty and learn how the game works and build up your mastery of the systems and everything like that, and then move on to the higher difficulties where you can get better rewards. Almost like a Diablo-like. So novice difficulty is kind of a head scratcher, which is by the time you get to this point, you're probably not really in need of learning. It's like, so I guess it is really built as a thing for people who maybe got Dynasty Warriors 3 and Extreme Legends as a gift, which I can't imagine is a very large subset of people.
Who's just like, yeah, I spent like $80 on this just to see what it's like. Oh, thank goodness. So it's extremely easy difficulty. Wow, I'm glad I spent $80 blindly on this game I've never played before. Like, wouldn't they just buy Dynasty Warriors 3 and see if they make it? And if they don't, I feel like just making it even easier doesn't really change anything.
If anything, it will give them a worse impression of the game, because like, easy difficulty or, regular difficulty is not that much harder than this. It's going to be brain dead the entire way through. And it's like, that's not true at all. Like,
I see nothing matters. Well, all right.
Truly a difficulty for nihilists. Like,
after that was April of 2003. These release dates are coming pretty regularly. For the PS2 was Dynasty Warriors 4, once again directed by Akihiro Suzuki. This one is very interesting. I guess you could say it is kind of an experimental entry, because they changed a lot about how the game works.
yeah, so like in this one, the AI is more reactive to certain things you do. They'll go after you up close if you're specifically trying to keep away from enemies. They will guard and attack more fluidly than they used to. Also, thing that was sort of emblematic of PS2 games at the time, especially ones as technically ambitious as Dynasty Warriors, is that they tended to have a lot of fog. Just the draw distance tended to be lower, so they could, in that lowered space, render more things. It's a perfectly good tactic for getting the most performance out of a game like these. And these games actually did perform pretty good on PS2 hardware. 4 sort of reduced that fog, and because of that, there was more guys on screen, but also there was a lot more pop in.
Yeah, the main issue with this is sometimes that it doesn't render in a person you want to be hitting.
Yeah, so like, sometimes what you actually have to do is like turn the camera away from them and then turn it back and they'll be there. Also, they sort of moved away from an individual character storyline to a kingdom-based storyline. It was less about, the individual General Jaho doing, and more about the Kingdom of Wei. But I mean, there were still elements of those individual stories, but it was more focused on the broader picture. And most importantly, though, they added in edit character.
This was strange. Like, I mean, it was neat, but it was literally just like, pick a generic character model. Now pick whatever moveset you want and name them.
That's it.
This is your special little friend.
This is your Blorbo, your feudal Chinese Blorbo.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, they diversified the movesets more in this one, and that includes with like generic officer weapons. They're actually not less than, like, they don't have like some kind of standout crazy move like the other named characters' weapons might have, but they're good. They're fun to use, I think.
Yeah.
There's launcher attacks that are combos now called charge drives. And there are also moves that are grabs, which is interesting. They actually took these out in 5, even though 5 adds a lot. They actually took out a lot of these grab attacks and charge drive moves.
You could feel that in 5, where it's like, I wish I could still grab this dude. Whereas you're like, I don't care that I couldn't do a charge drive because they're really weird.
Yeah, they're kind of stiff. I mean, Dynasty Warriors 1 reference? I don't know. But they just all felt kind of weird.
Back to the real shit, we're Dynasty Warriors 2 again.
So, like, a big addition also is they got more notable industry voice actors. So if you heard any dub for a PS2 game in this era, or any anime, you probably heard them. Like, Zhang He is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, though instead of being like a fabulous gay man, he went with like a dweeb voice, which is strange. Jurong is like from the tribal region, and she's supposed to be like this tough, muscular, like incarnation of the god of fire. But Michelle Ruff decided to play her as like a down-home southern gal. Which kind of makes sense. But
Considering that the region she is from is the southwest of of China, it's like,
you know how it is down south in China. Everything's bigger.
Everything. It's they're all about the hoedowns.
Also, instead of like collecting weapons like you did in the previous game, it's interesting because that feature, held on eventually, but it was, I guess, an experiment in and of itself in 3. But in 4, there's a weapon leveling system. Funnily enough, it's weird that I didn't like 4 more, but like, because I had a bad habit of trying to get as many KOs on like every single standard enemy on the map I could. I cleaned up. And like, this seems to encourage that. But by the time I finally played 4, I was like kind of overdoing that. So I was like, oh man, I'd rather just get a weapon and have like a big jump in power instead of just farming KOs.
And also, as a result, it didn't feel quite as good to like progress. When you got better weapons in Dynasty Warriors 3, the ones that were like significantly better usually came with a change of model.
Yeah.
And because they looked different, you're like, oh, this is stronger. And usually they were more elaborate and they had more like gilding on them. They were really nice looking weapons, whereas your starter weapons were really basic. I want to say that the starter weapon, like the starter sword, is just literally called a Dao. And then they move on to calling it like the Blade of Heaven and stuff like that. It's like they look like something that would be called the Blade of Heaven.
Yeah. A change I didn't actually know when it happened in the series until I went back and played through them again is breaking pots and crates for items. Like pots would have like power-ups or arrows, because you can hold like R1 and go into first person view to shoot arrows at enemies. It's pretty underbaked and really awkward, and they didn't improve it like ever.
They eventually got rid of it.
Yeah. It's improved in Dynasty Warriors 9, where it's implemented completely differently. But, you know, there's like pots with arrows or maybe healing items, and then crates, which can have, if it's next to a pot, it'll have arrows in it usually, is a weird thing I noticed. But if there's just a crate on its own, it might have an item that you can equip for stat bonuses or a weapon in it. But the problem is they were realistically sized to like a real life crate or pot. So they were really annoying to hit. But in 4, they made them all comically big so that you could hit them more easily, which is good because sometimes you're trying to hit the pot to get a healing item in the middle of getting your ass kicked. And you can't be like, man, the only thing that strikes like vertically enough is charge attack 4. I'm dead. Like, it's over.
It also made them stick out more against, you know, a lot of the backdrops, so that you know, like, oh, I could break this. Because you were breaking more of these things for what? I don't think it was necessarily a consequence of that. Man, the drop rates in Dynasty Warriors 4 are bad.
Yeah, I was kind of confused. It's just like, where are all the... Because sometimes enemies can drop healing items or temporary power-ups. It's like, okay, more defense for a minute, more double the attack power.
Can a motherfucker get a meat bun? Please, I'm dying.
Yeah. It's like, it's a shame too, because sometimes if you don't have an officer with like a horse, like to knock him off the horse and steal it, you're probably going to rely on like, well, someone's going to drop a speed ×2 power up so I can rush to the other side of the battlefield and take care of this thing. Like, that's another kind of choice you have to make. Am I going to grind out enemies here for the speed power up, like hoping I get one? And in 4, like they kind of take the choice away because your chances are a lot worse, I noticed. I played for a while that it couldn't have just been bad luck. I mean, it's kind of endemic to the whole experience.
Yeah, it really is just... They're not great rates, and it's something that I feel they definitely actually doubled back on, because the rates in Dynasty Warriors 3 were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's true that getting double the attack power out of nowhere will let you take down a guy way easier than you might have thought. But like, that's fun. Like, that's a little bit of variation.
You see one of those power ups on the ground, it's like, all right, it is time to clean house, and it should feel, you know, depending on where how the mission is going, it can feel like a real turnaround. There's a power-up that gives you full health and Muso.
Yeah, I mean, in some of them, I think they made it like full health and Muso heal. Some of them, it's infinite Muso for 10 seconds.
Which is nuts. That is ridiculous. Like, you can do so much with that.
Yeah, like, because that meter, like, it's not that complicated. You fill a meter over time with regular attacks or taking damage. And then you can press circle to do a Muso attack, which is a stronger attack, a little flashier, usually is like really good at hitting one guy or hitting a lot of guys. Getting an unlimited amount for 10 seconds can either totally erase the situation, or it drops in the middle of the field and you're just kind of like,
and there's no one around, and you're like, well,
man,
well, time to do my katas.
But, you know, it also allows for strategic use even within those 10 seconds where I want to hold on to this as like a get out of jail free card, because you can still perform a Muso attack as long as you're on the ground, but you're getting hit. You can still activate it to like cancel out the hit stun and be invincible for a bit. So with that, it's like, I don't want to use an attack for 10 seconds right now. I just want to use an attack really quick. If you do it within the 10 seconds, when the animation finishes, you won't lose any gauge. So then you can do it twice in a row, actually, versus just holding it down kind of like a big consistent thing. But yeah, that's just like one of those more technical things, which becomes more useful in Dynasty Warriors 4 Extreme Legends, which, you know, we're going year by year for a bit. Dynasty Warriors 4 is April 2003. This is September of 2003. It was directed by Takashi Morinaka, and this adds a few things that are pretty interesting. One is Legend Mode, which are these extra difficult scenarios for characters. I think most of them are just like explicitly fictional. I think some of them might be based on historical legends, you know, like this didn't really happen, but this kind of character fits the archetype of this. And some of them are themed around like all these characters are wives and who will be the ultimate wife.
And a lot of the Legend Mode stuff was like super difficult. It was made for like the real enthusiasts.
Yeah, I think it's something that's kind of missing with the previous one, in that some of the scenarios in story mode, I guess, were more difficult than there's the higher difficulty level, but Legend Mode has like scenario based challenge, like the things you have to keep track of, and even on lower difficulties, it's a challenge, but in that different like macro level that versus the micro level of individual combat being more difficult. And also they added Extreme Mode. I should note, like, if you haven't seen it before, it's XTREME, not with an E.
Because it was 2003, yeah.
Yeah, and it was fucking sick. Like, I mean, that's what I thought at the time, actually. I'm like, yeah, this is cooler. And then after a while, I'm like, why did I think that? I don't know why I thought that. I guess because it started with an X. You know, it's much cooler than the letter E. That's a vowel.
Just ask Mega Man.
But yeah, they added Extreme Mode, which is interesting because if it came out today, it'd be considered a roguelite. You pick a mission and you get rewards for it, but also like your character's state at the end of the mission is maintained. So unless you got enough money to buy healing items, or like you were able to find some before the mission ended, you're carrying on into that next mission with like your lowered health or your like lowered Muso. So you kind of have to like power up from zero again in this mode. I thought it was very interesting. Like it's pretty limited in scope, but the fact that they had a mode like this, I just thought was like appealing. And you can save, but once you die, it's over. Like you lose the run, and like, you know, you got to save right away. I guess you could probably power off your console, which was a common way to get around people forcing things to be permanent in the PS2 era.
You can power off PS2, no problem, but if I throw a Brit through my computer, that's permanent.
Don't save.
Do not turn off your fucking computer if you're saving.
It's worth noting that this is the first time. Yeah, obviously, yes, the Extreme Legends disc has the whole game on it, but actually on PC, they sold it as a complete edition called Dynasty Warriors 4 Hyper, which you can play in English. There's like a lot of random DRM cracks and stuff you got to do to get it working. It's kind of not worth the effort versus emulating it. But I mean, if you really hate swapping discs in emulation or something, and I guess you could play that. I think it has some new things added to it.
Making complete editions of Dynasty Warriors games is not really a thing Koei would get down until just very recently.
Yeah. In March of 2004, they released Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires. This was directed by Kenichiro Yasuda. We mentioned the Romance of the Three Kingdoms game influence, and this actually tries to fully split the difference between a strategic layer game and a Muso-based mission game.
Yeah, this is the real shit. This is the stuff I thrive for. The thing about Empires is you are throwing yourself into a scenario like, you know, you might be starting from the point, like this is starting from the Yellow Turban Rebellion, and the idea is you want to conquer China. So you have this upper level strategy layer that you control on the outside, where you're basically the whole kingdom. And then when you get into battle, you can control any of the characters that you're sending into that battle. And so like you go from this upper strategic level to the Dynasty Warrior style combat that you really enjoy. And it's really good. It's just so good. Like, yeah,
it's a incredible idea. And now all of a sudden the the story scenarios, where a smaller territory and this bigger kingdom has more resources, you can feel that in gameplay where you invade one territory, but they're surrounded by other territories where after a set amount of time in the mission, they can bring in reinforcements. But if you only have your one spot, you have what you have when you start the mission. All of a sudden, those time limits and everything become a lot more stringent because you only have as many resources as you have your power, so you can experience what a big mistake Louis Boo made, because you can also be massively overpowered and still fail.
Yeah, you can start some of these battles in Empires in such a poor position that it is just foregone that you were going to lose it, and it's just a matter of how badly you're going to lose it.
Like, luckily, you can, if you're being invaded, you'd be like, I'm not even going to play this. And there are actually things you can do to like reinforce the province so that even if you don't want to engage in the fight every time, it can sustain an invasion attempt. You know, it's the kind of thing where you are playing to play Dynasty Warriors. I don't think I've seen anyone do a run where they're like, I'm not going to fight any battles at all. It's probably possible, but it's slow.
If you're gonna do that, just play Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Like,
yeah, then you get like a lot more detail. I mean, I guess that could be off-putting for some people, where they're like, I did really good in that battle. It's like, well, I hope you like managing a town now because you ranked up.
you get to determine how wheat gets moved around.
And they changed the item system, so because in the previous games, like, you'd get an item like, oh, herbal remedy, this increases your charge attacks, and it would randomly be like, oh, I got one that like increases my charge attack power by 5, and then later I got one that increases by 10. So now it's always going to be by 10 as the minimum, and I can equip it on however many characters I want. In Empires, each region has a set of, they call them products, which feels a little strange, but now each region has a specific product, and you produce it, but if you equip it for a mission, after the battle's over, it is used up. So you actually have to build up a stock of them if you want to keep using them, and you can research them now to improve their level instead of just randomly finding them, because you don't find items. I think certain events can maybe give you an item sometimes, but that's about it.
I want to say, like, you have to improve a blacksmithing facility to get better weapons.
Yeah. And also, they finally changed something. So we mentioned you could turn mid-combo in the previous games. You were still biased towards hitting the person you were already hitting, which made like launching someone in the air and keeping them up there pretty easy, but it still felt kind of stiff. Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires actually takes that out. And so now you have full freedom of movement, and I didn't realize how much I would appreciate it until I played it.
It's so much better.
It feels natural now, which is like a kind of an odd thing to say, but like now the combat is like, it does what I wanted to do pretty much all the time. Like there's still some weirdness around. Sometimes the camera will automatically move out of the way of obstacles, but it's a game with pretty wide hitboxes for your attacks, so that's rarely an issue, I'd say. They still also don't have dual analog control for this series. They won't have that until Samurai Warriors 2 and like Warriors Orochi. It is a little annoying. It's not as natural as I'd like, but you can reset the camera behind your character by guarding. So if you just get in the habit of that, it's pretty fluid. Like I think this is one of those ones where like if you had to go back, it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, I don't think it's a lot of reasons to play 4 Empires just because of how basic the Empires aspect is that I don't think I'd go back to it. But in terms of playing it, like I think that's really nice.
It definitely felt like a for there being so little time between Stream Legends and Empires, like it felt like a huge improvement just from that. I can't really state how much of an improvement it is. It's one of those things that you definitely kind of have to feel for yourself.
We mentioned how the AI is more reactive. It's funny enough, there's a guide on Game FAQs that's literally like, here's all the enemy AI behaviors. And it's the kind of thing where it mostly works for most people because they're designed to react in a way that would counter your actions. So you can say like, oh, they seem very smart. But then people are like, well, you can jump when you're not even in range of these guys, and they'll just all like swing their weapons at nothing because you're not actually jumping in the way of them. You know, that's how it can play out, but also when you're in the middle of a fight, they can do things that are intelligent. Like, so being able to turn around and hit someone behind you to stop yourself from getting stunned out of a combo it's just really helpful. They also improved character creation, because that's actually going to be a signature for the Empire series going forward. They're going to have some base games with character creation in them, but for Empires, it's going to be like you can make your own characters. They can be totally original, or you can plug them in to like generic officers, like replace them with yours and give them the same name and have them like fit into the story. In this case, though, it's still pretty limited. Like you have more options. And for some reason, one of them they made was like the little girl model who doesn't hold any weapon correctly. Like none of them are attached to her hands properly or stay in her hands when she moves around. And that's mostly worth mentioning because they'll still have this problem in Samurai Warriors 4 on the PS4. Game development is difficult. I don't doubt that, but it's like, I mean,
the more things change,
it's a long time for
the more they say the same. It's like,
Oh, Dynasty Warriors 4 also added dueling, where like someone will challenge you to a duel, and then you'll fight them. Like people form a ring around you, and you'll just have to fight that officer one-on-one. So it's kind of a throwback to Dynasty Warriors 1 in that way. For Empires, though, these aren't like designed, like pre-designed scenarios in the same way. So instead, the duel requests will just come from
everybody's squaring up at the end of a mission.
Yeah, it's kind of bogs things down where it's like, all right, I've got him on the ropes, and someone's like, can you beat me one-on-one? It's like, well, you beat that guy that's way stronger than me, but can you beat me one-on-one? You beat all the warriors, but can you beat me, a tactician, one-on-one in a fight? It's like, yeah, I can. I mean, some of their movesets can be pretty good, but the generic tacticians are not that dangerous.
I bet you can't defeat my abacus.
And the last thing I'll note is that For Empires has a credit song called Ever Free by a band called Two Hearts.
Ever free.
I was watching a friend play Hi-Fi Rush at the same time, and the start of the song, which is like a Queen style like harmonization, lined up with what was going on screen, so I thought it was coming from Hi-Fi Rush. I guess it's kind of in line with this series, but man, it's it's a real feel-good song. It's a real rock and roll feel-good.
You know what else felt really good? The PSP.
Good transition. In December of 2004, Dynasty Warriors Volume 1 was released for the PSP. It was directed by Kenichi Ogasawara. It's one of the first titles released for the PSP, much like Dynasty Warriors 2 was one of the first PS2 games. And they sort of simplified the structure, but I think it benefits the game a lot. So this is based off of Dynasty Warriors 4, so it has like a similar feel. It doesn't run as well, obviously. It struggles a bit.
It's a little bit of a struggle, but I mean, I think they've worked with the limitations of the PSP in a very interesting way. So the way Dynasty Warriors Volume 1 works on the PSP is instead of having one big open map, you get this grid of smaller squares, and each square is where a skirmish might be taking place, and you gotta choose where you go on this grid map. Individual engagements and skirmishes were actually kind of small. You wouldn't be facing like hundreds of dudes in a single skirmish. You might be facing like 30 guys. While these skirmishes are going on, skirmishes in other squares that you're not in are resolving. It almost feels like you're dealing with a bigger map, even though you're absolutely not.
When you attack a base, it's like the base section of what a bigger map would be. So you still have that aspect, but you're not going to like naturally be like, I got to run away from the base and go back down to the supply depot to like crack open a pot and get some health, because you're limited within that map. But it's also, there's a time limit on each. If you clear it pretty quickly, you can get like an extra movement from that square. But if you clear with no extra time at all, like you'll lose a turn to everyone moving on the overall grid map. And moving on the map also lowers your overall mission time limit. And these are actually pretty tight, so the only way to extend it really is to raid enemy supply depots. So now these aren't just like, this is the one that drops healing. I don't need healing right now, so it doesn't matter. Even on lower difficulties, you'll want to like try and route your way through these so you get extra time.
And like you got to do this in tandem with figuring like, well, the battle is going real bad over here, and if I lose here, that's it. the moment-to-moment decision making is combined with the tactical overarching decision making in a way I find really satisfying.
Yeah, I think it actually does a better job of communicating this than the regular console releases, even, because they tuned it in such a way that you always have to be making decisions even on lower difficulties. They don't have traditional equipment in this, but instead your supporting officers boost your stats. Like, they are your equipment, and they have like passive and active abilities. And because I guess they didn't want to do network play, but they wanted to do something with the ad hoc Wi-Fi on PSP, you can trade officers with other people like Pokemon.
Which it has some implications. Maybe not the best thing, but
Just trying to imagine that scenario. Just like two kids in the schoolyard, like, oh, you got Sai Mao? Oh, I love Sai Mao.
Dude, check it out. Come on. That dude's named He-Man. I love that guy.
It's not like they gave them all unique models or really any, like, they all look the same and are otherwise pretty generic, so you kind of have to judge by their abilities. And then once again, the named officers tend to be better, but you have like a capacity depending on your own current character level on how many you can equip. But also, an interesting thing that I thought kind of helped with the difficulty, where you still got your character progression benefiting you, but each map was still interesting, is that you also start on like a per map level at level 1 and go up to level 10. So this kind of moves you along your character's true stats. So that means missions still have an arc. So I mean, I guess this could be annoying if you really want to just totally power through a map again. I feel like if you want to replay a map and have it still be interesting, even if you've powered up a character a lot, without necessarily going up difficulty levels, this is a good way to do it. And then we get to my favorite of the older games, Dynasty Warriors 5. This came out in February of 2005 for the PS2 and Xbox and was directed by Takashi Morinaka.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of people see 3 as the sort of zenith of Dynasty Warriors. I think 5 is kind of the zenith.
I feel the same way.
It's real good, folks. You should play Final Fantasy. You should play. I nearly said Final Fantasy 5. You should play that too, but you should play Dynasty Warriors 5 first.
From an interview with the same Shueisha interview with Tomiko Sho, 5 is the last title of the PS2 era. Just as rumors of the PS3 were beginning to emerge, programmers had accumulated knowledge on how to maximize the capabilities of the PS2. And the programmer in charge at the time boasted that we could display nearly twice as many characters as before without any processing lag. So this was a title that approached as the culmination of the PS2 generation.
Boy, was it ever.
They improved everything, like, again. It's kind of wild to see them go from like Dynasty Warriors 2 to 3 being such a big leap on the same hardware, to think like they could do almost something that big, not quite, but almost as big again at the end of the generation. Really shows like how much they developed their skills and like understanding of the PS2 by the end. So worth noting, we mentioned Samurai Warriors came out in 2004. That is also a pretty big leap in terms of presentation, but more so in terms of their understanding of like cinematics and like menu design, as well as like focusing on characters. So Dynasty Warriors 5 has more of an individual character story focus, where characters will talk before missions. They'll introduce themselves. They'll talk about like what their deal is. So if you haven't had much experience with the Three Kingdoms, like this is a good way of knowing who these people are. 3 has like, you know, character story modes, but they don't always say very much about themselves. So it's like, I guess this is some large guy with an axe who talks about wanting to be the strongest in the Kingdom of Wei. And here's another strong guy with an axe who wants to be the strongest in the Kingdom of Wei. And here's a third guy with an axe who wants to be the strongest in the Kingdom of Wei.
They definitely leaned more into individual people in the overarching story of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms in 5 in a way that I feel is really good. Because the thing about Romance of the Three Kingdoms as a novel is it is a long overarching story spanning an entire period of Chinese history, but it's also very, very focused on individuals.
Yeah, and like even after the character talks about their feelings on the situation, then you get the pre-mission briefing, which will mostly be the same for every character that does it, where it's like Cao Cao will say like, "Oh, the Kingdom of Wei, like we're gonna invade this territory," and then they'll have like one line like, "Dian Wei, I'm counting on you for this mission." And sometimes even after that scene, you'll get like a pre-rendered cinematic, or the start of the mission will have a cutscene with the character talking about something. My only problem with this is that some of the soundtrack, like the songs, are really good and start off really exciting, but the timing of the opening cutscene, like it just starts the song. So like the cutscene will be going on for like 30 seconds and the song's already kicked into high gear. The soundtrack in 5 is so good. They're all good, but like, 3 and 2 had like that techno rock sound. 4 has a much heavier guitar element to it, whereas 5 spreads out and uses more and different kinds of percussion. Some songs have actually pretty long startups where it really like builds over time and then hits, like it has a drop and it just gets like really good. But then other ones like Swordsman in the Plain, which if you start on the Yellow Turban Rebellion, you'll probably hear that track, starts pretty energetic and just gets more energetic. I love that. That's like one of the best.
Most people do start on the Yellow Turban Rebellion, so it makes sense to have a really good pumping track. But because it's it's starting like immediately, you can have a pretty down tempo cutscene paired with the most rocking track you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah, it's just people being like, how's your wife?
I wish my wife were like that.
So they removed dueling from 4, which I think helps the pace mostly, but like there's nothing in place of it. Like sometimes like you'll face an enemy and they'll like enter a powered up state, and if you run away from them during that point, they'll like taunt you about it and you'll lose morale. So that's kind of similar, and I think it is more natural, but it can be unclear, kind of like sometimes you can run away and it won't cause a morale hit, and it's not really clear when the difference is. But part of the shifting like morale now that works with the soundtrack is I'm surprised they hadn't done this early in the series, but the soundtrack, like the music will change mid-mission depending on the scenario. When you're on the back foot, like someone gets killed in like a story situation, the music will change to something that's more dire or like menacing. There's a song called Superior that sounds like you're gonna win this one, and that will play like when you're at high morale.
It felt like they were actually changing situations on the battlefield instead of having, one track playing the whole time. You got peppy, upbeat music getting played while you're getting your ass absolutely handed to you.
Yeah, especially because like sometimes the final encounter on the map can be really hard. Like Dynasty Warriors 3 like changed the save system so you can make interim saves during a mission. You should do that because it doesn't have any kind of automated checkpointing, and it's dependent on what like difficulty or how many interim saves you get. But yeah, so like when you get to the end and there's a difficult encounter, sometimes it's good to save. Otherwise, I could imagine this has happened to me where I like redid a mission and I forgot to interim save, so I did the whole thing over again. And I started associating Superior with me getting my ass kicked at the end of the mission. But yeah, they also just added a lot of functional improvements. Now when an enemy's going to do a Muso attack, they have like a sort of electricity effect on them, so you can run away. Or if you initiate your own Muso attack and it clashes, then you'll get like a button mashing minigame. They'll just be like stunned. So like you lose your Muso attack. It can sometimes be better to just run away and not lose it. Otherwise, like it's a way to avoid getting killed by some of these attacks, especially on higher difficulties. There's like an indicator for when you're in position to mount your horse. It's not always accurate, but it's better than the previous games where we just kind of had to guess it when you're close enough to get on them. You can have a bodyguard now. You can now do like team Muso attacks that you used to only be able to do in like split screen co-op with another person. Now you can do it with your AI bodyguard. They have abilities that can grant you extra effects. Also, now the enemies are coded to use like joint attacks. So before, like in Dynasty Warriors 2, I mentioned, like the captain, it powers up everyone else and they'll lose morale if you kill him. Now, it's less like of a statistical bonus, but if their captain's still around, then depending on the unit type, they'll do these specialized like joint attacks. And these are actually a lot more dangerous than regular ones. So something like a spear unit, them synchronizing like a rushdown attack on you can catch you in a way that none of the other regular soldier attacks could. It actually makes it more worthwhile to like look at what type of unit you're attacking when you see the little life bar when you hit them to see, okay, this is a captain.
This guy's commanding a bunch of archers. I should absolutely kill him first.
And all the archers, God, they're so...
I need to kill 15 dudes in the next 15 seconds or I'm going to die. Like...
Yeah, archers are very dangerous for most of the... I'm trying to remember when they actually powered them down, but they're really tough in 3.
Archers in Dynasty Warriors 3 are as powerful as archers are in real warfare at that time.
Yeah. They kept the base concept from Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires, and they kind of switched them around. So it's like, okay, this is an attack base. When I'm in there, the guard captain will cast the double attack power buff on everyone in there, which can be really dangerous. Like, I remember one time they all did their Musos on me at once, and I don't know how I survived.
I was going to say, and then you reloaded an interim save. And...
But then when you clear the base, the guard captain has a good chance of dropping an attack power, like permanent stat boost. And then also the base has a higher chance of dropping the like 30 or 60 seconds of double attack power.
And, you know, the bases in each map weren't necessarily always, like, there was always a base in that location, but it wasn't always the same type of base.
They added a mechanic called Muso Rage. Weirdly, this is like a random drop. I forget. There's a way you can start missions with it. I think it's when you reach a certain rank. You know, you picked up this coin, and then you could press R3. Very funny that they didn't think to put camera controls on R3. And they're like, oh, but the button, though. The stick, I can't think of anything to do with it. It does nothing. But pressing the button now...
It's a button. You can wiggle.
It immediately fills your Muso gauge. It puts you into a powered-up state. Your attack power goes up. Your attack speed shoots way up. And even after you do, like, your Muso, you'll do a powered-up Rage Muso attack, which will have, like, more elemental effects and, like, lingering damage and, like, maybe a bigger finishing move. But you'll actually stay in Muso Rage for a little while after doing it. And if you're fast enough, or if, like, say, an enemy dropped a Muso refill, if you have full Muso, you can do the attack, enter Muso Rage, refill, do it your Rage Muso, and then pick up one of the pots of, like, wine on the ground to refill it, and do it again. This is, like, one of those things I just really like because it gives you more control over being overpowered. And if you can, like, tack on a, you know, attack power ×2 power up sitting around, you can do things you shouldn't be able to do.
It adds a little bit of the elements of luck, but when it pays off really well. It's the thing that you can point to that specifically and be like, yeah, that's Muso, baby.
I mean, we've been talking about, like, the specifics of each game so far, but, like, that feeling of just, like, sweeping through a bunch of guys, yeah, that's power fantasy. That's something that a lot of games purport to do, but not all of them do it that way. I mean, there are Muso imitators, and I always feel like this is the thing they often fall short in, is that either you're too powerful or it's too annoying.
The thing about most games trying to do power fantasy is they don't have a big number that flashes up on the screen every 50 KOs, and they don't have a die pop up in the corner being like, you are a true warrior of the Three Kingdoms when I get 1,000 of them.
They'll even say it before the Three Kingdoms are established. I don't know what they know that I don't. My character doesn't at the time, but it's great. And it's one of those things too where finding out the most efficient, like, set of moves to, like, react to the shape of the crowd of the enemies is that's how you know, like, you're really learning your characters, when you know what moves to use when. And when you find some move that feels like, oh, this is kind of strange, like, this is just like a knockdown stun, but then you realize that it hits all around you, so no one's on your back, and then you can follow on, like, with a follow-up attack for the people in front of you, or you can reposition to use one of your other attacks that is more obviously useful for crowds.
Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of depth to these games that I don't think people realize is there.
Mm-hmm.
To its detriment, I don't think the games especially signal that to you on a first impression. It's one of those things where, like, I feel I have to tell people, like, just stick with it, man. It'll click, and then you'll realize that you've been missing out on peak gaming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, people hold Metal Gear Rising in high regard, as they should. That game's incredible. That game just straight up lies to you about how certain things work.
Yeah.
They tell you to parry in a way that's not true at all, and that's a central mechanic in that game. So I don't know. I think you should be willing to give Dynasty Warriors a similar shot. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be as hype as like the boss fights in Metal Gear Rising, but across a sustained period of time, I think it's...
Wait until we get Dynasty Warriors 8, and you're playing a mission, and suddenly Good Punch starts playing, and you're just like, yeah, that's the hypest shit on earth.
Yeah.
Like,
also, they added a weapon weight system for this. Light weapons have 25% less attack power. Heavy have 25% more. Light has higher attack speed. Heavy has lower attack speed, which in this version of the game is only a liability. It's not good to have heavy weapons like ever. The weapon had to be really good to be worth using if it was heavy.
the thing about this being a, sort of a real-timey, actiony game is that attacking faster is going to always come out over hitting harder. Just about every time. That's why, when you get Muso Rage and you get heavier attacks and also more attack speed, you're like, oh my god, I've become a Cuisinart. And it's like, but you can get that effect to more of a degree by having a higher attack speed than by having a higher attack damage stat. Because someone who can hit faster can hit first.
Yeah, and then weirdly, the series has also had these like highest tier weapons for characters, which you don't get as random drops. You have to do something specific, usually on the highest difficulty, on a stage in which they did something notable, like historically, and you try to like recreate that. And then you get a notification that like a treasure has appeared, and go crack it open and pick it up, and you'll get their fourth weapon. This is not randomized, though. These have set statistics. And for some characters, like Dacia is like a light character. Like she's like a more mobile character. But her weapon is heavy.
And it kind of ruins it.
It's like, yeah, it's quite bad to use in practice. It's a paper fan. Come on, how heavy could it be?
Made out of legendary paper, Sid, and that's why it's so slow.
Of course. It's actually got the entirety of the text of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms packed into that fan.
And that's why it's so fucking heavy. It's because it's 50,000 miles long.
But also they added something called evolution attacks. Certain weapons will randomly have like a little blue like spark on the weapon icon. And what this means is when you have a full Muso gauge, after you've done your whole combo, you can keep mashing light attack to do an extended combo, which sometimes is better than the other stuff you can do. So I'll say like, okay, in this specific scenario, you're right about it being a game where you press square, but like you got to kind of work to get to this point. And it's fun to have for some characters. Some characters, it makes up for their moveset being kind of annoying.
Some people will think that that's all you do is you press the square button. You got to earn that. Can't just go straight to pressing square.
Yeah, it's like a lot of games with builds in it where it's like you got to learn how everything works, and then, based on like item drops or like what you want to do in the game, you earn getting to do your one thing you like the most. And I don't think that's that unusual. I mean, I think I mentioned in the Phantasy Star Online episode that like, oh, Phantasy Star Online's why I like Dynasty Warriors, but it's also why I like Dark Souls, because getting items with special abilities I think is interesting and like fun, so that like vary what you get, because it can push you into certain behaviors too, where it's like, yeah, I mentioned the bow combat's not very good, but if you got a weapon and it's plus 15 arrow damage, that's a lot, like I may as well use it while I have it. And it does do a lot of damage. It's just awkward to control, but once you figure out how to work it into stuff, that's one thing that is just beneficial, is trying to let it take you somewhere. If you play these games and you're just dead set on getting the perfect weapon that has exactly what you want, I think that could make it really disheartening to like not get it. But if you're like, I'm just going to go with what I get, like I just think that's a much more enjoyable way to play these games. Even for the stuff that's not as well implemented, I think it's still good. Like, oh wow, this character's charge attacks are kind of weird, but I have so much charge attack damage on this. like I have a higher tier weapon, but my lower tier weapon got a really high like bonus to reach, like my attack reach. So I'm gonna do that because I like hitting crowds with this character better than I want to do more damage. And also, we mentioned chaos difficulty in the past. Like they added it here. And the way it makes it more difficult, like it provides better rewards, but they just flat out disable your defense stat entirely.
An entire facet of how a character plays just out the window. Some characters' whole thing is that they have a really high defense when, fully maxed out, and then chaos difficulty is like, well, that doesn't mean anything.
So I hope you don't have a heavy weapon. You're just screwed.
Chaos difficulty with a heavy weapon on a defense-oriented character, oh, just terrible.
I remember I tried it once, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll beat up some normal guys. Like I picked like a very short stage where you only have to, I think, actually kill one named officer. But then it's like a random guy that came up, poke, dead. Fully dead instantly from a regular guy.
It's how they're presented in cutscenes.
It's kind of a funny disconnect. Like the openings of these games are them doing stuff that's like way beyond the scope of what you can do in the game. Like they'll be fighting in a tornado or something, and it's like kill like 1,000 guys. And then in an in-game cutscene, it'll be like
3 normal guys charge you.
Yes, you'll never take me down. And then like, oh, he died.
A guy who you were just playing as in a mission where you took down 1,000 men gets charged by 3 normal guys and flinches, only to be saved by a new guy who's better. And it's like, don't ever change, Dynasty Warriors.
Once again, we're on a quick turnaround here. September of 2005, Dynasty Warriors 5 Extreme Legends comes out. Most important thing, now if you are mid-attack with a heavy weapon, you don't flinch from normal attacks anymore. So they're not total garbage and can in fact be pretty good for some slower characters.
It largely fixed them, I feel like, it made it so that if you had a heavy weapon, you could just sort of like tank through stuff, which didn't really help on chaos difficulty, but it still made it so that when you saw a heavy weapon, you're like, I'm not gonna just throw this away.
It was of most benefit to characters whose movesets are like so slow that even at lightweight, they're still pretty vulnerable to getting interrupted. So this is like, well, okay, this is pretty much the only solution I have to that. Like, obviously, the other things you can do are like learn your spacings better to avoid getting hit, but this lets you once again play in a different way, which is a good thing for heavy weapons because otherwise they were just a worse way to play. They also added something called Destiny mode. They still had Legends mode, but like this Destiny mode is sort of an expansion on the idea of Extreme mode. You make a custom character and you start out really weak. Like, you have like a 2-hit combo. You need to buy the ability to even shoot a bow, get a longer combo. Like, and even if you buy a longer regular combo, you don't necessarily get all the charge attacks. These are like still regular missions, but now you're a lot weaker. But as you play through this, you'll get way higher stat. So by the time you finish it, even your character who isn't max level will be way ahead of a character who's close to max level. Like, I was really shocked by how much stronger you are.
Yeah, it's really an astronomical increase in power.
Yeah, and the character creator is pretty good. It's the same one that's going to be in the sequel. I think it's like a little less feature rich, but yeah, no, I liked it a lot. I think it's a really cool idea. And like Samurai Warriors 1 had something like this, but that one you trained by doing these mini game battles, which were all very specific, and it was really hard. And if you messed up the final test, like the characters got erased. You also couldn't customize them as much. And then when you came out the other side of that, you unlock like a full story mode for that character after you finish the training. I was like, oh, this is going to be like Destiny mode. No, you suck after that also. You are so weak when you come out the other side of that. It's really like, nah, you're a normal person in this battle. Like, you got to be careful. It's like the cutscenes where it's like, there's 3 guys? Yeah, that's 3 guys. You're one guy.
3 guys, I'm one guy. They got 3 swords. They got a 3-foot vertical leap.
But yeah, like Destiny mode. It makes sense that the example name for the character in that is Joe Musso, because yeah, you're gonna be the Musso guy when you come out the other side. The legend. There aren't a lot of changes or adjustments, but I think as far as Extreme Legends versions of the game, like it's just a really solid expansion of that idea.
5 Extreme Legends is it's just really good. You should play 5 Extreme Legends.
Yeah, and then also you can take your custom character into free mode for all the other maps, and then you can actually challenge things on the highest difficulty. And it's probably faster, I think, to finish Destiny mode and try and level that character than it is to level a standard character to be able to survive Chaos mode.
And now it is time for the real shit. Once again.
That's right. Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires. This is actually the first one I bought. I saw it on a shelf and I just thought the cover looked kind of cool. I didn't realize like the Empires games don't have a real traditional story mode with cutscenes. So I was confused on that end because I had no idea who anyone was. But yes, this is Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires. It came out in March 2006 for the PS2 and the Xbox 360. A little awkward because regular Dynasty Warriors 5 came out on the regular Xbox, so they have no connectivity whatsoever. And this was directed by Jun Takato.
They added the ability to execute generals in 5, because like it used to be if you were approached by an officer, either who you captured or who just wanted to join you, you didn't want them to join you, you could be like no, but then they would just go back to being a thorn in your side.
Mm-hmm.
But in 5, you can be like, I don't want you so badly, I'm going to take you out of consideration for eternity.
In 4 Empires, you could choose from an officer's suggested policy, like your advisors. But that's the only thing you can do. In this one, you can pick individual policies. So like, develop this item, refill this officer's troops, strengthen the defenses in this province. Now they balance it so like, yeah, you can choose what you want, but if you take an officer's suggestion, you'll get 2 policies instead of 1 for each like unit of time you get. And as you rank up and take over more territories and get more recognition, you can take more actions per turn. If an officer suggests something that's a policy you don't have yet, you'll like unlock it for the individual policies. Additionally, executing people, like a reason you might not want to do it is that like you have a sort of morality system.
And if you're just executing everybody you see, then people will be like, I don't want to fuck with that guy.
Yeah, and also then you can only do more evil policies where it's like, oh, I'm going to demand money from people. But if you do that too much, then there'll be unrest in your own territories, which can lead to them rebelling, or other kingdoms will poach units from you. They'll want to, like, your officers will leave you.
Everything in 5 Empires was kind of just a refinement of 4 Empires in a way that just made everything about it better. 5 Empires exists, there's no reason. It is 4 Empires, but better. There's more of it.
If you really miss like doing grab attacks and charge drives, I guess, but that's, I don't know. I mean, then you could just play 4 regular if you want to do that. I don't think I'd play Empires for that. But you want to do charge drives, but you also want to turn around mid combo.
Well, Sid, you know what's not better?
What's that?
So in March of 2005, just a little bit prior to 5 Extreme Legends, we got Dynasty Warriors Advance. And oh boy, it is not good.
This is the first game I bought online, like a physical copy of a game I bought online, because it was the person was selling the loose cartridge for $1, and I think I overpaid for it.
Yep. It plays on a fundamental level a lot like Dynasty Warriors Volume 1 on the PSP, but because it's on the Game Boy Advance, there are a lot of concessions made.
Yes, the bullet points here I wrote were grid maps returned from Volume 1. The fun does not return from Volume 1.
It certainly does not.
This game is stiff as a board. Like, I kind of want to apologize in retrospect to Dynasty Warriors 1 for calling it stiff compared to this game. This game is, it's bad. It's boring.
Okay, like there's a lot of problems with Dynasty Warriors Advance, but most of all, hey, do you remember any track from Dynasty Warriors Advance?
No. Oh, I guess that makes it not a Muso, actually, based on our.
It's not a Muso.
So, all clear. God.
Why are we fucking talking about it?
The only thing it does that's kind of interesting is that specific unit types are weak to specific attacks, which I think they did to get around the fact that they couldn't animate as many different attacks. This will come up later in a far, far better game. But yeah, moving on. I guess in case anyone thought we were implying it, yeah, the GBA is a great handheld, but this didn't help.
It's a great system with a lot of great games. It just was not good for Dynasty Warriors. But what was good for Dynasty Warriors, at the same month as 5 Empires, we got Dynasty Warriors Volume 2 on the PSP.
Yes, I couldn't find a full-on director credit, but the lead designer is Fumiya Kato. And this one is based on Dynasty Warriors 5, so all that stuff, all the changes they made, all the improvements, the performance is a little better than Volume 1. It still doesn't feel like fully smooth, but it is much better, I think. They also brought back collecting weapons and getting mounts. Your officers are still like stat boosts, but now like the weapons exist alongside that. Now Muso Rage is a meter you build up over time. Instead of a random collectibles, you can deploy it more strategically. There's the camp menu that was in a bunch of games, which was sort of like the gallery for all the stuff you unlocked. It'll now tell you how to get certain characters, like what scenario you have to be in, what kingdom you have to be in. It's like the same thing for unlocking weapons in the other games, where you want to do a specific thing really well. They also kept the music changing mid-stage, but it only applies in regular battles and on the overall map. When you attack a base, there's one base attacking theme. Kind of annoying to have it interrupt whatever else is going on. I don't really know why they did that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel dynamic like it did in 5. It just feels like, it is the base attack time.
Also now, like when you seize an area, like you shoot right back to the grid map. It loads way faster. Moving around on the map like now takes more time, so you have to be like even more efficient. But you can also now branch the stages, like we mentioned in the past, like sometimes things will be different depending on how you do a stage. And it was interesting because it didn't really call attention to itself in previous games. Like in Dynasty Warriors 5, you would get into a battle, it's like, this was a battle that they traditionally lost, but because your character story would just end there if they did, you beat it and they're like, well, we should have lost, but we won that battle instead. And so if you're not familiar with the era, it could be like you're like, I don't really understand how that's true. But in this one, Dynasty Warriors Volume 2, there is more branching and it tells you like what you did to do so. So I think it's a little better at demonstrating you did something exceptional by winning this battle clearly and like cleanly. Also, there are these villages on the minimap. And when you go there, they give you these little missions like, can you go here, do this? And some of them lead to treasures, which are protected by characters from Samurai Warriors, which is kind of fun. Like they made a Samurai Warriors game in this style as well. So I think it's just like they had the resources to make it even. They don't try to explain how it's possible at all.
Yeah, it's just a fun little thing.
Unfortunately, the portable era hits another snag on the Nintendo DS.
Sid, do you like cards?
I don't know, man. It's put cards in a lot of games that I don't actually like very much.
It's another way that Tecmo Koei Animated Force came to a part of gaming history before we knew about it. We got to the deck builders. And boy, do I fucking hate it. It is better than Advance, but oh my god.
Yeah, so September 2007 gives us Dynasty Warriors DS Fighters Battle, directed by Keiji Okayasu. The cards are equipable officers. They're not playable officers because instead they're 3 guys they made up that are kind of archetypical, not that interesting. It looks a lot better than Advance. It plays better, but it's still just kind of mash shit out and cards will make it more interesting in the meta sense, and that'll handle everything.
It did not handle everything even remotely.
It's not as aggressively boring as Advance is. I mean, that's a game I paid, was shipped to me, and I put it in my Game Boy and tried it out and was still lost interest quickly. And this was just, something I tried by emulation and I lost interest. But like, even adjusting for that, it's just not fun. Like, there's a lot of great games on the DS also, and I think they could have pulled it off in this case if they just like had a different focus on the design or like tried to evolve the action more. But I guess they didn't think that was important.
If it were me making a Dynasty Warriors game on the DS, right, I would definitely try and make something similar to Dynasty Warriors Volume 2, or maybe something a little scaled down because the DS is not as powerful as the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
You saw a lot of ambitious games on the DS. Dynasty Warriors as a series is no stranger to doing ambitious things. It's like, I just feel like they just went in the wrong direction with Fighters Battle, and boy, if I never see cards in a video game again, it'll be too soon.
I'm worried to even say it out loud because of just any device listing in the areas like, oh, Sid said cards, time to recommend him 5 million Magic the Gathering videos again, even though he's never clicked on any of them in his whole life. He's never clicked on any of these.
Unfortunately, now you're going to have to not click on a bunch more.
And we're going to close off the transition from the standard definition to high definition era of Dynasty Warriors with a game that made that transition itself. Dynasty Warriors Online, released in Japan on November 2007 and shut down in February of 2022. In the US, it released on November of 2010 and shut down in January of 2014. This was a PC exclusive. It was directed by Kazuhiro Echigoya. This game has kind of got like the evolutions and presentation that Dynasty Warriors 6 will have, but plays more like Dynasty Warriors 5. You make your own character, but this actually had a kind of unique set of character creation options. The previous ones had more general theming, like, oh, this is like a Mystic's outfit, or this is a Captain's outfit. Whereas the create a character outfit pieces in this are more inspired by the existing cast of the game, but they're not exact copies. So like you can mix like, oh, I want like the waist piece that kind of looks like what Sun Tzu wore, and then like, I want like Zwotz's like weird afro brush hair. What would you call that? It looks like a brush.
It's supposed to look like a brush because the whole thing is he's like a philosopher and a soothsayer sort of deal, and like so it's supposed to look like the brush he uses to write. But yeah, I don't know what I would call that hairstyle. It's that interesting.
You know, I tried to at least try a bunch of these games, but I couldn't. But everything was shut down. I'm not sure if there's a fan server, but it's. I mean, I watched a bunch of videos. Now that sort of leveling up mid-mission thing from the PSP games is now like during levels you'll collect these flasks that increase specific abilities, and this had competitive missions, but not where you just attack people directly. Instead, you have to achieve goals faster, which is really interesting. I mean, I think they could have expanded on this. On the other hand, I feel like back when everyone was trying to do esports, they would have tried to make an entry about it, and it would have been bad.
Yeah, it would have had gamers talking.
It's interesting because, you know, like I said, it launched, it was like looked more like Dynasty Warriors 5. And as it got updates, it eventually got a big overhaul update and was retitled Dynasty Warriors Online Z. A lot of online games did this. Monster Hunter Frontier also did this. I think sometimes people say it's short for Zenith. Other times like, oh, it's just Z, you know, the end of the alphabet, so it's more. And that's when it made it look more like the HD era games. Pretty impressive that it was around for so long in Japan. February 2022. I thought the pandemic might have shut it down like immediately.
Yeah, that's news to me that it was up until then, because damn, pretty long for what is effectively a very niche online game.
And now we enter the HD era fully with Dynasty Warriors 6, released in November of 2007 for the PS3 and 360. Directed by Tomohiko Sho, the self-proclaimed best-looking guy at Koei Tecmo.
He says in that Shueisha interview, when we were making 5, I thought there would be a limit to how much we could make and approach it, so when we made 6, we deliberately narrowed down the characters. When PS3 came out, overseas games were rapidly gaining strength, and the volume and visual quality of games was improving. So rather than just increasing the quantity, we thought the focus on going forward should be on how to create a high-quality, one-of-a-kind gameplay, for example, by incorporating actual martial arts movements such as Kung Fu to create an exhilarating feeling. You know what else they decided would add to the quality? subtitles in the cutscenes.
Yeah. They have, for the first time ever, like really extensively cut down the playable cast of the game. Not just like when they moved Fushi and Nuwa. Like, this is a lot of the characters you liked. They've also reduced the amount of movesets, and they redesigned everyone in some pretty bold fashions.
Yeah, like some character designs worked out pretty good. Like, you see what would almost become Xiao Yun's sort of look going forward. But then they also made Don Zhuo look like a bloated corpse. It was kind of nasty.
This guy is greedy. It's like he's alive.
To do that, he's got to be, breathing and extant.
Yeah, and he's like considered like a pretty hardy guy. Like I guess he's like on the weightier side, but he's strong. Yeah, and I mean, especially with Xiao Yun's armor, like the scarf was definitely kept going forward, but in this one especially to highlight how much better the rendering tech was, he has full set of like metal armor, very like striking looking, and catches the light. We mentioned that they had trouble pronouncing things. In Warriors Orochi on PS2, they finally started pronouncing Cao Cao correctly, and so this is the first mainline game where you get that benefit. They pronounce most names a lot better. They also put a bigger emphasis on like verticality. Now there are more ladders to climb, and they're varying elevations. There are open bases where you can jump in to the open top of the base from a higher elevation to surprise attack enemies. They actually like statistically get like a morale loss temporarily from the surprise attack.
That period of shock is enough to like really change how those fights go.
Yeah, it's sort of letting you do a thing that is, in the cinematics that is not always represented in gameplay. But also you can climb up like a tower within a base to jump back up to a higher elevation to like save time. The environment has much more of a sense of place. You can also swim now, meaning that like in scenarios where a place gets flooded, like we mentioned earlier, now it's not just like a debuff on the enemies. It actually creates an area where like you know to swim through part of the castle. There's no combat element to swimming, but it's one of those things where I think it just increases the verisimilitude of the environment, and like it just looks a lot nicer. And luckily for being like a PS3 game, it's an earlier one, so it's got more of a saturated look to it. It's not like dull and gray. They took out the bow and arrow you have on yourself, and now that button is an evade, which is nice. They made it so that one of the collectibles you can find on stages are these strategy tomes, and they have special effects. Oh, this is like a fire attack tome, or this is a boulder. But these have special effects depending on where you are. So on a cliff, a boulder attack will do more damage to people. Doing a fire attack within a base will cause way more damage than doing it just anywhere as like a sort of bomb attack. Unfortunately, this game has some problems. One of them is a system called Renbu.
Renbu is a system wherein as you land combos and do well, your Renbu goes up. Lets you do longer combos. What this means is that you don't have the charge attack system anymore. It was a huge gamble and it did not pay off.
Now it really is a game where you press square, but like you gotta press square so much more. Like this is a game where legitimately my thumb hurt playing through stages. I mean, it'd be kind of less interesting in a different way if you could just hold the button to do your light attack chain over and over again. And also, your charge attack. It's just a different chain of attacks.
Basically, a higher Renbu means your combo gets longer, and your Renbu can drop if you're not doing well. So,
and you can't hold square to do the attack because that's now a sweep attack that hits multiple people. That is more variety, but it's just kind of a pain, and it forces you to kind of rush through stages.
They had, some good changes like the tome systems and the tome attacks and, the evade and everything. But like, this is kind of where we start Koei throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If one thing is not handled well in a game, they will throw the whole thing out. We lose a lot of good changes from Dynasty Warriors 6 when we move to 7 in exchange for not having the stuff that we didn't like from 6, and we'll get to that more when we actually talk about 7. So like this is sort of where we start seeing that more predominantly in Koei's design philosophy for the series.
There are some things they also brought in from Warriors Orochi. If you press the evade button while you're on horseback, you can jump on the horse, which is good for like the fact that sometimes you get caught up on small obstacles in the previous game and you had to like fully circle around to get around it, and it was pretty annoying. Additionally, you can whistle for your horse and it'll come to you, so you don't have to keep running back to the horse when you're just handling things on foot, which is especially useful. I think in the previous games, when things weren't, the environment wasn't as varied, you could say like, well, why wouldn't you get back to your horse? But now in this one, maybe you jumped down off a cliff and you got to run all the way back up the cliff to call the horse. Why don't you can just whistle for the horse now? They got rid of the pre and post mission dialogue, but the briefings are more detailed now, with laying out the actual full battle plan across the stage. Like, okay, you're gonna do this, and then this to do this and this. So instead of just playing it by ear in the moment and being like, okay, I did the objective, time to go run off and do the thing I want to do, they're gonna want to do this right after. The parry input, which used to be attack while you're blocking, and if an enemy hits the block, they'll get their attack turned aside. Now, if you do that and you're not deflecting an attack, you'll do a grapple attack. These are good for getting around enemy guards mostly, so it's a way to offset that. But also, if you kill an enemy with a grab attack, then the experience item they'll drop will be doubled in value. And this is actually more valuable in Dynasty Warriors 6 because they finally made it so that you level up mid-mission. There's still rank titles, but now you can actually level up and it'll refill your meters. I like the kind of split between the levels and the post-mission metagame in the older games. But I mean, just leveling up mid-mission, having it pop up on screen, it's good. That's why so many games do it.
And everyone likes seeing a little level up thing pop up above your head and you did a little boost to your stat. Especially because then oftentimes you will feel that improvement right then and there, as opposed to having to wait until the next mission to feel it, when it might have been really useful in a mission.
They brought over something from Samurai Warriors, which were called mission targets. There's the battle plan for the mission, but then there's these additional challenge objectives you can do that will gain you this will give you extra experience points, this will give you a new item or something. It's one of those extrinsic motivators that I think is good for people who have trouble seeing oh, well, this game's just so simple. Okay, but can you stop this fire attack but also take out this officer? And it's well, you now gotta find a way to route it so that you can take out the officer before they reach a certain base or location on the map and still make it in time to stop the fire attack. And sometimes I guess you could turn it aside and be okay, I'm just going to get the mission targets this time. But the ultimate challenge then is, can I get all the mission targets and pull off all the regular objectives?
Sit's also made it a lot more worthwhile to stick around with your allied soldiers instead of just running straight ahead. You can get buffs and open new paths through the level. Some of your guys might actually carry ladders around for sieges. They'll cheer for you and that'll buff you up. So it's not always 100% of the time the play to just absolutely leave your allies behind and go do all the stuff.
It's also cool when you're in the middle of fighting an officer and they're tearing through your guys and then you beat the officer. There's a cheering notification effect in all the games, sound effect in all the games. But this one, you'll see the actual guys raise their arms in the air and cheer. You're
also just not the only one getting stuff done on the battlefield. Sometimes AI officers will just straight up get things done without you. And so, firstly, that's illegal. I'm the only one who's allowed to do things. But secondly, that's pretty neat. It feels like you're not the only one who's allowed to do something because you're part of an army and not just one guy.
Yeah. Because it gives you some confidence to do things on your own. Before I mentioned, it's it's a challenge thing to how you handle it. But now it's also, to some degree, a kind of trust thing. It's oh, okay, this officer, you can pause the screen and check the state of the battlefield and be oh, okay, they're pretty high health. So if they go to this base, they're not going to die. And I can take care of this thing on this end. So it's still managing information, but it's on a more tactical level. Instead of just being well, they might be okay over there, but I'm still gonna have to go over there and get it done.
It can also be kind of a relief in missions with lots of objectives, because it's man, how am I gonna do all this in this short span of time while keeping track of all these other things? And it's well, the AI officer sometimes just got you.
Yeah. Speaking of that meta progression, they got rid of equipping items, and now you have a skill tree sort of, but they're not really skills. A lot of games do this, and I think it's not that interesting, where some of the nodes are your maximum Rembu gets higher, or you can start the stage with a certain amount of tomes. You can hold more strategy tomes at once. And then some of them are
+5 attack. little boosts like that should not really be on a skill tree. That should be stuff that comes from equipment.
If for nothing else, that's literally not a skill. What does that even mean?
Guan Yu did another rep.
Yeah, I did a push-up. This push-up gives me 5 more defense, unlike the push-up that gives me 5 more attack. And also, like, this has a mix of the traditional weapon system in the Dynasty Warriors 4 thing, where, like, now you have, like, a regular weapon, and then a power-type weapon, and a speed weapon. So I guess it's kind of like a variant on the weight system from 5. But, like, these are what have different models, and then you can get, you know, different abilities for each of these. In this era, like, it was just pretty common because not everyone had the newer consoles. They had released like a last gen version of the new game. So in that case, this gave us in October of 2008 Dynasty Warriors 6 Special for the PS2. This gets rid of the swimming and the dynamic climbing like up certain ladders or sieges. So like on stage Fawn Castle, when it gets flooded, the ground has water on it, and like the enemies lost morale, but you're not going to swim around in there. 6 more characters get actual story modes who were in the game, but like they didn't have any story. They get new weapons, meaning Ling Tong, the guy who has the Bruce Lee moveset, isn't using a halberd anymore. Yue Ying is added, and she has a blade bow, which is basically like she uses it like it's a gun. It sounds like a gun, also. It doesn't sound like a bow at all.
Much like some later weapons in the series, where what they call it does not really describe what it is.
Yeah. My favorite thing is when you do like a weapon clash with someone, if you win, she'll do like that I can't remember, it was like she flips up onto their shoulders and then does a front flip to like slam them into the ground. And then she slits their throat with a bow. It's like, you did not need to go this hard for the character whose primary thing is like the wife of Zhuge Liang who invents devices. Like, she's inventing new ways to just kill the shit out of a guy.
She invented 500 different ways to kill a man.
If you do like the grapple, she just like jams the blade into them and just fires, and it's just like bam, bam, bam. Holy shit. This is the nice kingdom of Shu.
Yeah, that's the benevolence kingdom.
Unfortunately, like, it has the reduced dynamism, verticality. It has more low times, more pop in. You know, and I remember back when I was interested, I'm like, oh, I want to try it anyway. It was just like way too expensive, and they didn't print a lot of copies. So I mean, I think if you're emulating, it's still interesting, and it is the only mainline Dynasty Warriors game on PS2 where they say South South correctly.
It definitely feels like a transitionary game.
Yeah.
You can see where they made the concessions and like still tried to keep the whole experience, but couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, and it's also just interesting because like for a lot of those games at the time, it's like the next gen version is so cutting edge, and this is the cut down version. But like this many years out, it's like they're both the outdated, not cutting edge version. So like the difference is just, if anything, feel quaint. There was also a PC version, but it's very annoying to set up and get working correctly.
Not an ideal way to play a not ideal Dynasty Warriors.
That said, in May 2009, they released Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires, lead designer Atsushi Ichiyanagi, and this is actually a big improvement.
It's a pretty solid game. I actually really like Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires.
Oh, yeah. It was like my second Empires game. Finally, they brought in the officer role-playing mode that I mentioned that was in Romance of the Three Kingdoms 7. You know, I was like, oh, this is where they developed this, and it came out before Dynasty Warriors 2, and it took this long for them to be like, maybe people in the like character-driven action game want to play a specific character in the strategic layer as well. And this gives you like opportunities to do things like go on quests when you're not affiliated with a kingdom or ruling it. You can choose to specifically like betray or abandon a ruler. You can befriend characters, which I remember my character, I'm just like, you know, I'm going to become best friends with Lui Bu. And then I did. And then after that, he's like, I guess because I was playing a woman character, he's just decided it's like, actually, I'm in love with you. Have my horse, Red Hair, which is the fastest horse in the game. It's just, in many of the games, it's just the best horse.
A legendary horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
The statement in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I believe, is among men, Louis Boo, among horses, red hair. Imagine if a horse was a buff man.
Imagine a horse just vaguely had evil vibes. You know?
Imagine a powerful horse. Enjoy your nightmares.
And just to clarify for people, that's like red hair, like HARE, like a rabbit. It does have red hair.
It does have red fur. Make no mistake, it is a red horse.
So they kept the character creation system. It's pretty simple, but it's actually decently flexible. And especially like in the 2000s and like earlier games and even later games, the fact that you can make a character who is black is like kind of notable. They're just like, this game, we can give skin color options. It's set in ancient China, no one cares. And like you pick parts for each, like you like head, chest, and arms, like waist, legs. And then you can pick like a set of like preset colors for each of them. Sometimes it'll be like green on this armor is still mostly white but green, but then on this other piece of armor it's like all green and no other colors. It's actually a decent amount of variety for something so simple, especially so early on in the series. It also is the first Musou game to get DLC, which meant more outfit parts and music from the previous games. And unlike most Koei Tecmo games going forward, this was very affordable. It was like a small DLC bonus package thing. I think it was like $10 maybe.
Very reasonable, and there was not a whole lot of it. This will not continue.
Oh, you want to hear music from Dynasty Warriors 5? That would be $30.
You can buy the normal version of the game, which includes the game, a very nice full package. But if you want all the DLC, that will be 200 additional United States dollars, please.
So for the actual battles, the big improvement is that now Renbu is not a meter that you need to fill up by doing more attacks and dropping. Now your Renbu level is your level for the whole stage. If you want to take some time away from the battle to run off and like heal or something, it's not going to negatively impact you. Also, now those strategy tomes are now split into like abilities, and you can have 4 at once. So like a combination I used was one ability made it so that all my hits left an after image that did extra hits. Another was that my evade became an attack. And then another was when I hit people, they drop money. So I'd go into the main base of the enemy, which the crowds are very big in Dynasty Warriors 6, by the way, but it also runs really well. It was like the last game to run at like 60 frames per second and have these big crowds for a while on console. And I'd go into the middle of the base, just like a swarm of dudes, activate those 3 abilities and just dodge through all of them. And I just make tons of money by the end of the mission.
That's an all-timer combo.
Yeah. There are probably other good ability combinations, but it was so much money. I could not do it. It was so much money.
It fits all the 3 best things about a specific set of abilities. That it is easily acquirable, it is very effective, and it is lucrative.
Yeah, and especially because like when you hit people, like you see with the ability active to get money, like coins fly out of them. So you dodge into a huge group of guys and a bunch of coins fly out. It's like that's video game dopamine 101.
That's Musou, baby.
I still think that Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires is worth trying out. Like the Renbu thing can still hurt your fingers.
If you're gonna play anything related to Dynasty Warriors 6, play Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires. That is the best part of it.
They made it a rather unusual choice. I'm glad they did, though. In February 2009, for the PSP, they released Dynasty Warriors Strike Force. This was directed by Noriaki Toshikawa, and it's inspired by Monster Hunter.
This is once again the real shit.
So Toshikawa had previously directed Crimson Sea 2, which is a game that sort of took the Musou formula, but it was split into explicit missions, had more of a focus on like ranged combat using guns with like mixing in melee attacks and like basically magic special attacks. And that was brought in here, kind of. Like, and also had some inspiration from Dynasty Warriors Gundam. You can fly, you can dash around, you fight giant enemies. Your Musou now, when you fill the meter and do it, the first thing you do is transform into like a powered up super heroic version of your character. And then if you do the Muso again while you're transformed, you do the Muso attack. But this powered up state is actually beneficial because, like, you know, you can fly and dash. You can fly longer and dash more times when you're transformed. And the things that increase the amount of times you can do this, the like special things you can equip to do this, are more easily available for this transformed state. So, you know, you have a choice between, like, do I want the immediate benefit when I transform I can dash more times, or do I want to add it onto my base level character, which will then also benefit the transform state. This also added equipping 2 weapons at once. You still pick like a cast character from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms story. It's the same story for the most part, up until you beat the game, at which point Lu Bu comes back from the dead and turns all the mystic beasts of each kingdom into evil versions, and it's way harder than the base game, and I didn't beat it. You pick these characters, and they have like a preset weapon, and then a second weapon slot where you can equip anything as long as they have enough proficiency to use it. I played as Yue Ying, and she has the blade bow again, so I couldn't use spears. She didn't have enough proficiency to use spears, but I could use almost anything else. Like regular swords or like clubs and stuff like that was fine. Part of the reason you'd want to switch weapons is, like I mentioned, there was one good idea in Dynasty Warriors Advance where certain things are weaker to certain attacks. They brought that forward here. So like the main thing I remember with Yue Ying is when you're fighting turrets, ranged attackers, your attacks are more effective against them with the blade bow. So it's kind of a cheeky thing to make you use a ranged weapon against enemies at the range they're most dangerous, but it does kill them a lot faster.
In Strike Force, you were actually able to carry consumables. You could have meat buns on you so you could heal on the go, or you could have stronger meat buns that heal more.
This is something that some of the later games would add back, but the immediate sequels don't use. And this is like, you know, another Monster Hunter type thing. Like the items are part of your build, so to speak. Also now, like your guard is now a lock-on, and unlike some other Muso games that would implement lock-on, this includes regular enemy soldiers. At first, when I played this, I like just, you know, did my full attack combos. They got rid of Renbu, and like people have like set attack chains, and now like certain inputs will do different moves. But I was just doing my regular attack chains on normal enemies, and I'd get hit in the back. And I realized like, what you should be doing is like you do these attacks, and then you reset your combo by dashing. So you move out of the way and you can keep up the pressure on enemies. And you should even be doing this for regular troops. So it's actually like much faster, even though to accommodate the PSP's limited power, the overall level maps are split into segments. So I guess it's like Dynasty Warriors Volume 1 and 2, but you don't go to the overall strategic map. You just are in these segmented map sections and like experience them in a linear fashion. And much like how Dynasty Warriors 3 had remixes of 2's tracks, this has more electronic remixes of the original Dynasty Warriors 6 soundtrack. It has some new tracks as well, but like the one I always associate with this one is a track. It's called Beat It, which I feel like they shouldn't be able to call a song, because that's a song already.
There's a pretty high profile one that has already got that one. You may have heard of it. It's called Beat It by Michael Jackson.
It's like, is it like an homage or something? No, totally different song, also called Beat It.
I was like, there's nothing wrong with naming your song the same thing as someone else, but at the same time, like, this one in particular, you might want to avoid.
A lot of the Muso games had online co-op by this era, but they were like session-based. Like you do a battle with someone, and then you disconnect and have to reconnect to do another battle with them co-op.
Yeah, and it was kind of clunky. This one is really seamless. It's really good.
Yeah, once again, they copied Monster Hunter, and it's weird that they were able to do this and didn't bring this forward. This isn't even like oh, people didn't like this, we'll throw it out. Because actually, even though Muso games for a while like didn't do great critically because they were considered like, oh, these are very similar, they're kind of repetitive, and I think that's true, but I think that's also true for a lot of other games that do get more credit. Example I always bring up is that the people at Giant Bomb at the time were very negative, like for the most part, on Muso games. But then also I remember when Destiny came up, like I had friends who listened to it at the time, like, oh, they're going to spend hours talking about Destiny. I'm like, when I look at Destiny, I think that's just shooting guys like the whole time. Like that's repetitive to me to watch. So, I mean, I guess it is just like people's different, what they like and what they don't like. I think it's more interesting to use lots of different melee weapons to fight crowds and then individual guys versus shooting people. I mean, I do like shooters, but I don't think I'd like Destiny very much. You've actually played Destiny, haven't you?
I played both Destiny 1 and 2, and let me tell you, like, it is much better to use a bunch of really different melee weapons than to use a gun that shoots 3 bullets at a time as opposed to a gun that shoots 5 bullets at a time. Which, by the way, is a legendary gun. Like, I brought it up very much in passing earlier, but like these games do have sort of a Diablo-like feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Destiny also has a sort of Diablo-like feel in that you get these semi-randomly generated guns that, you know, they have a base model and they work in a certain way. But like, if you find one type of a gun, you're going to find that same type of a gun later on with higher numbers, and that's pretty much the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
In Dynasty Warriors, you know, higher quality weapons not only do larger amounts of damage, but like they might, like you mentioned earlier, might have higher reach or might attack faster, or like those differences are, in my opinion, bigger and more meaningful, and it's in a way that I feel it's kind of hard to make things different when you're using guns.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you can only really use a gun in one way, and that's to point it at an enemy, pull the trigger, and they die. Whereas a melee weapon, you know, they can be sweeping weapons, they can be stabbing weapons, they can be, you know, they can be stuff like chain whips or stuff like they can be also they can move in different ways, and that feels more meaningful than just having different guns with different numbers. And, you know, I feel that that's going to be a kind of a controversial thing to say. And how could I say something so controversial yet so brave? The answer is because I'm right, for one. But for two, I think it's just a design problem that I don't think any shooter has really meaningfully addressed. In my concession, I will say I haven't played every shooter on Earth, so I don't know how much, especially not every looter shooter on Earth, because 90% of them are extraction shooters nowadays. I don't know how it is in, say, you know, like the new Borderlands, how the guns are differentiated from each other, or if they even are to an adequate degree. But like, it feels more, it feels like it's easier to meaningfully differentiate melee weapons.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, you know, even when 2 people have spears, they don't use them the same way.
This is especially true now in the later part of the Muso series, where like every character's got their own moveset.
Yeah.
If not their own moveset, then a variation on another one that is enough to make it feel different.
And we mentioned all these positives. Unfortunately, somehow this game reviewed well with critics, but didn't sell well. Like, enough that they didn't release the sequel at all in America.
It was Japanese only? You know, you would think this would be a slam dunk, right? I mean, I'm pretty certain it was a slam dunk over in Japan.
Yeah, it did pretty well.
We talked about this in regards to Monster Hunter as a series over here, where, like, you know, for the longest time we had Monster Hunter on PSP and that was it.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get all of them. We didn't get Portable Third at all.
Mm-hmm.
This definitely does feel like it should have been a bigger thing over here at the time, but like it also was definitely made very much for like Japanese sensibilities. Not that we didn't enjoy it over here, it's just that it was kind of a sleeper.
Yeah, it's the same reason why Monster Hunter did well in the West, but wasn't like a sensation in the same way.
Yeah.
It did do well enough for Japan, and like I guess still enough to warrant coming out in America, because in October of 2009, Strike Force HD was released on the PS3 and 360. This is the way I played this game, and if you haven't played Strike Force, play it this way.
Don't emulate on PSP.
Higher sound quality, which is good for the music and all the voice acting. There are new models. They're not just upscaled, they are new high-quality models with better animations. The game runs at 60 frames a second. The controls are smoother. And most importantly, you can bring 3 AI partners, which helps for all the missions that end with like 3 officers who will, on the PSP version, just beat the shit out of you. And it's nearly impossible sometimes. This totally fixes that. Like the part where I mentioned where Luibu comes back from the dead, like that part's still really hard. But I also didn't really invest a lot of resources into powering up my AI partners. I just brought them along to draw attention away from myself. But for the entire actual story of the game, that works. Like it is really fun. Like I like that a lot when I played it. I really enjoyed Dynasty Warriors Strike Force HD. the sequel, which came out in March of 2010. The original one, the Japanese title, was Shin Son Goku Musou Multi-Raid. So the sequel, Multi-Raid 2, came out on PSP and PS3, but the like quote-unquote HD edition this time was just an upscaled version of the PSP game. It's the only time they ever used Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China, as a villain. It's also a sequel to the last game. That never happens in this series.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, folks. Like...
They're like, well, what happens after Louis Bouquet? I was like, oh, well, what if someone came back to life from even farther in the past to try and take over? So it's got an all-new story. Unfortunately, there's only one English translation. I think it was just like a rough machine translation. The formatting's very bad, so it's actually not... I'd say functionally it's not more comprehensible than just playing the game in Japanese.
Yeah, definitely not an ideal way. It was definitely one of those things they kind of pressed out to get it out there.
It also has like a feature where you can accessorize the characters. Instead of character creation, it's like you can accessorize the actual cast of the game. This one has the AI ally feature from the HD version, even on PSP. And when you're in Fury form, you don't lose your Musou gauge over time anymore. So they really want to encourage you to do that the whole time, which makes me kind of wonder why anyone has a not transformed state at all. I played it for a bit. It's just kind of hard to know what to do. You know, because there's all these different progression systems and shopkeeps and stuff. And it's like, oh, this one will put like orbs into your weapon to give it special abilities. But these are also the people who make your weapons. And this is where you assign officers to different facilities to level them up. And like it's quite dense in the original version, even in English. So seeing it with like the adjustments and changes in the new one, I was kind of confused as to like really what I should do. And it's the PSP version. So like Strikeforce 1 on PSP, it's not as like refined feeling as the HD one.
Now we're getting into parts of the series where it's like, yeah, this is where I would have you start if you were going to start anywhere. In March 2011, directed by Atsushi Miyauchi, Dynasty Warriors 7. We actually have more than 3 kingdoms now. We have the Kingdom of Jin, which is the direct aftermath of the Three Kingdoms era. Just the general overall visual quality takes an even bigger step up. However, this does mean that the performance does suffer. Also, it had 3D TV support. You remember that? Like,
it's so weird to play a PS3 game and see that. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when this was the next big thing.
So, the presentation of the cutscenes and everything in Dynasty Warriors 7, I feel it is to the PS3 era of Dynasty Warriors what Dynasty Warriors 5 was to the PS2 era.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the presentation is just so good in Dynasty Warriors 7. You did a lot of seamless transitions from cutscene to gameplay without any sort of delay. A lot of dudes on screen, even though the performance does suffer from that. The game does get more Musou despite the fact that it performs worse. The base game, Dynasty Warriors 7, has a ton of content. You've got 4 full-length campaigns. There is some overlap in the missions in each, but obviously when these kingdoms intersect, you're going to play them from both sides. Because there are so many more dudes, you get 1,000 KOs like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And what feels like a first for the series is we finally get some sort of tutorialization.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, well, gee, that would have been nice to have in Dynasty Warriors 2.
Try this to do a combo, and then you actually have to do it and pull it off before you move to the next step. Swapping weapons mid-combo to do a switch attack has all these benefits. It's also extra helpful in this game because they kept the weapon switching thing from Strikeforce, but now it's massively expanded. There are so many more weapons for characters to use. They have so many more moves. Like the charge attack system's back. The only things they didn't keep from previous games are like no running charge attack from 6, no air charge attacks that were in 5 or 4, but you can do air Musou attacks. You have a multi-stock Musou gauge that can power up your attacks. And yeah, this like weapon switching system, You could launch someone in the air with the spear and then switch to throwing knives and just send them flying across the arena with repeated attacks and then switch back to the spear and do your Muso attack for a big finisher. And that has 2 weapons of the dozens.
Yeah, I played the ever-loving shit out of Dynasty Warriors 7. What I was talking about earlier with like more meaningful differentiation between weapons is like really in play, especially because, you know, you are able to switch between weapons. You could do some absolutely like combo mad shit.
Yeah, in addition to like the switch attacks, weapons also have built-in gimmicks. So like this weapon is a sword, but it leaves behind spheres when you attack. And then when you do charge attack 1, it'll like detonate all of them. But like all the weapons have something like that. Some of them are like madly overpowered. Like this is a game series we should say like it's not balanced. It's not like fair among everyone. Like everyone's movesets are equally good. It's not. But it's also not a competitive game. Maybe you someone whose moveset is really weird, but mastering it is more satisfying to that end. But if you just want to beat the game, you're going to use Luibu's weapon because he's got the best moveset.
Yeah, there's at least 60 characters. Like there's Wu, Shu, Wei, Jin, and unaffiliated officers. That's a lot of characters. So naturally, it would be very hard to balance.
There's also more of an opportunity to play other characters because they've gone back to the kingdom setup from Dynasty Warriors 4, but with a far superior story presentation.
Like oftentimes you'll get to a specific battle, and it'll be like, you know, here's 3 particular officers from this kingdom who did something extraordinary during that fight. Pick one of these, and that's who you play as. You don't pick just one person and be like, that's who I'm playing as through the entirety of the Wei storyline.
I wasn't sure how much I'd like this because I like the character focus of the previous ones, but the overall storytelling and presentation is just really solid. So it actually feels like there's more depth when characters are present. Characters aren't just like their archetype as much as they are in previous games, where like they have to just be their one personality trait as much as possible. They actually interact with each other, and that's like a regular feature of the story. It also has like seamless transitions, so you don't get any more end mission victory screen, which is kind of a bummer where like people would do a cool pose or something and you'd hear the victory theme. But now you hit the enemy and it transitions to a cutscene of your characters like clashing and knocking them back, or like the intros for each stage. They'll ride down from the hill in the cutscene and right into gameplay. This actually also solves the problem that I mentioned in Dynasty Warriors 5, where the soundtrack would be timed like you're already starting the level, but there's a cutscene now, so it's rocking out while they're just having a conversation. Now it usually is timed almost perfectly each time.
There's actually music for cutscenes that feels more like something you might hear in a historical drama.
Yeah.
It'll play that while a chat is going on, but as soon as gameplay starts, that's when the rocket kicks in.
It is really excellent. The only issue I'd say is that it's a PC version. It was released in December of 2018. It was like a complete edition. It doesn't seem to accept like analog input. It just like translates the keyboard commands to joystick directions. And this doesn't seem like it'd be a big deal for this kind of game because, you know, I mentioned like wide hitboxes and all that. It actually feels really bad. It's distracting.
Which sucks because like the complete edition on PC came out pretty much out of nowhere, right? We didn't know it was coming.
Yeah.
I was stoked. I bought that day one. I was like, I'm gonna fucking play Dynasty Warriors 7 again. And yeah, really do wish it was fixed. Because I mean, it's a phenomenal value. Like, it is $20 for everything related to Dynasty Warriors 7 except for Empires.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking about like, oh, the DLC is like $120, $200 or something. This is all included for $20. All the DLC. That also means that like the joke DLC weapons that characters get, they're overpowered and, you know, silly looking, or for some reason equipped on lock characters by default. It's not like a huge deal, but it is a little like this messes with the feeling of progression and the aesthetic. Not all the joke weapons are really that funny for it to be worth it. Like if they were all really funny, I think it'd be different, but they're not.
But to bring the clock back to September of 2012, Dynasty Warriors 7 Extreme Legends came out, and we're still working with Mitch Joy here. When you use Mitch Joy to link Extreme Legends to 7, it stays active for 3 days. It remembers it. Really further brings us closer to breaking the glass and really seeing what's going on behind the scenes. So it added Legend Mode, which really kind of builds off of Strike Force. Strike Force had a city upgrading system, and it sort of brings that in from Strike Force for Extreme Legends. It lets you play opposite sides of scenarios from previous games, which it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unusual. Like, you think it'd be easier to play like the Yellow Turban side of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, but a lot of games actually don't let you do that. Also, I will say about the mixed joy thing is that, like, now it's actually better if you bought the base game digitally, and this is also true for emulation, so it's so useful, is to have a digital version of the base game and then a disc version or a digital version of Extreme Legends. If you have the inverse, then you need to put the disc in, which is, it's so dumb. So there's DLC at this point.
We'll get to it.
The major addition here is that, like, you know, you get more money and skill points on higher difficulties, and banner soldiers on the enemy side, when they like raise the banner, it'll buff their officers and drain your Muso gauge. Feels like this kind of hazard, like stage hazard element isn't always explored in the games. It will be later, but it's strange that it took this long, and then they kind of don't do it as much in 8.
And boy, can it be fucking ruinous. Like, you be getting ready to chew some people up, and then you realize your Muso gauge ain't full anymore. It's like, oh no.
Well, I'm being combo, but luckily I can die, I guess. Oops.
You know, on top of the fact that this is on chaos difficulty, so it's like, so you just like, oh, I'm fucked. I'm so screwed.
God, it's so funny.
It's really funny. But we're back to the real shit. November 2012, Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires. I played 50 billion hours of this.
Yeah. You can still switch weapons, but like mid-mission, like swapping your weapons that you picked up off the ground, that was in 7, and it's one of those things that sound like it'd be really useful, but it actually doesn't. I felt like it didn't matter much.
Yeah, it didn't really come into play.
And also, weapons had these things called seals instead of the regular like weapon ability system. They ditched that too. Now the weapon system's like pretty simplified, but they included any DLC weapon from 7 is included in the base game of Empires, and characters who previously like, oh, this character uses a spear and this character uses a different spear, but they have a different special attack with it called an EX attack. Now they have a DLC weapon as theirs, and they keep their old one. My favorite was like a Jurong's moveset. She had throwing knives initially in 7, and then the DLC added a boomerang. So now in Empires, she'll have special EX attacks for throwing knives and the boomerang.
We gotta talk about Dynasty Warriors names for weapons. When you hear the name Arm Blade, you would think of a blade that goes on your arm. An arm blade in Dynasty Warriors is a canoe. And so also this is the introduction of something called the Siege Spear, which you would think is just a big spear. It is not. Did you know that in ancient China they had rocket-powered lances that you could fly around with, and it was the best weapon in the game, hands down? They had a lot of ingenuity back in the day.
I mean, I think that one's in 8 because the character who's associated with, I remember in Warriors Orochi 3, which goes off of 7, he didn't have it. But it's just a funny weapon to associate the guy. It's like, I'm kind of a coward and I always wear a helmet because I'm not confident in myself. You're using a rocket-powered spear? What do you mean you're not confident in yourself?
7 was also the game that introduced one of my favorite characters, Dun-Ai.
Yeah.
Who uses a big lance that is also a drill. He's fucking great. And I remember the thing I would do is I would give my creative character his EX attack, because his EX attack is he just does a cross armbar to someone, and it does a shitload of damage. It has a travel range of 5 million miles. Like, Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires is where Empires took the formula and just really ran with it. They added so much. Officer status is like a running thing. if you send an officer out to fight in like every battle, they might take on wounds if they get beat up a lot. And if they take too many wounds, they can be killed permanently in battle. You now have, on top of your normal individual like morale rating for each officer, you have like, well, I've been sending this guy out a lot, and if he gets beat up anymore, he's gonna fucking die. And that's on top of all the upper level management stuff that you do. You really feel in Seven Empires and later Empires games that you are managing this thing all the way down to the individual level, and it feels so fucking good.
Yeah, they also like have a quest system, but like invading territories is also like technically a quest. This is neat because I think it's something that the individual character play needed more of as a way to advance your character. Because in the previous, like in 6, it kind of felt like, yeah, you can be a free roaming agent, but like it is just a stepping stone to finding a kingdom and finding someone to serve. And now that's still like mostly true in 7 and 8 as well for Empires, but the quest system means like, well, I want to like develop my character a little before I make a decision. Now you can do that because you can actually make any amount of money
without instantly signing your soul away to whoever is the most powerful at the time.
Also, for some reason, I mean, I like this, I guess, but now the items that give you buffs, they are permanent when you buy them, and they are all equipped at once. Like, you can disable them after you buy them, but there's no downside to having all of them. So it's like a weird progression thing it's actually less refined. Like, again, I don't mind it, but it is a regression, I think. It's like not a decision anymore.
Yeah, it's just you just put everything on.
And especially now, like, I guess the decision now is because you can buy weapons of all types and tiers, like, at quality levels at any time. So I guess like, well, do I want to save up for like a big, strong weapon, or do I want to buy all these items? But based on your situation, you could be like, I have a lot of money right now, but I don't have a lot of territory, so I'm not going to generate a lot of wealth. So obviously I'm just going to buy what I can right now until I can make more money, like, because I want a buff right now versus not having a buff. They also let you like buy clothes in the game instead of just having them be set in the character creator. They have a separate points currency, which is also what you use after you clear a scenario to carry over what you gained in the previous scenario into a new one. I don't really do like continuous play with Empires. I mean, mostly because like the way it's set up, oh, I'm going to pick a starting scenario like the Yellow Turban Rebellion. That's what happens at the start. And then you just play through until someone wins. There's no like, we're now at the end of the Yellow Turban Rebellion era, and there's like this unique victory state for it. No, it's
the starting layout of China.
Yeah, and like there are preset events that can happen, but because of the way the game works, if you're like, I really want Guan Yu on my side, if you successfully get Guan Yu on your side, you diffuse almost everything that happens to the Kingdom of Shu historically, and therefore any interactions that Wei or Wu have with the Kingdom of Shu, because Guan Yu's not there.
You know what else is about Guan Yu?
What?
At least one part of Dynasty Warriors Next released on the PS Vita.
That's a YouTuber transition. Come on. And speaking of yeah, Dynasty Warriors Next released in December 2011 for the PlayStation Vita, directed by Tomohiko Sho. I mentioned in the past I like the Vita a lot, so the exclusive. Let me just read the bullet points, just straight up. Runs surprisingly well and looks very decent for a portable system. Instead of a life bar, the screen gets redder. To copy Western games? An Empires-like policy system lets you set stratagems before battle in both the campaign and conquest modes, which you unlock through playing the campaign, and conquest is kind of like Empires. There's functional multiplayer and edit character features. Sure would be a shame if all of these positives were completely torpedoed by required touchscreen minigames and duels, which wouldn't be good if they were fully functional, but also they're not fully functional. Uh-oh.
It do be like that, unfortunately.
I could not finish a single scenario.
See, I played the absolute bejesus out of Dynasty Warriors Next, but I think that's because it was one of the only games I had on the PlayStation Vita. Vita means life. I remember liking it, but now that I think back to it, I can't exactly remember why.
I mean, the stuff, like, it feels good. Like, I played Dynasty Warriors 8 Complete Edition on Vita first. And that, that doesn't perform as well. The graphics aren't as nice. It's, it's really good. It's a very full-featured game, but the technical aspects aren't as tight. But oh my, I couldn't beat the stupid touchscreen duel. Like, it just didn't take my inputs correctly. I tried to do it, the timing was so strict, but it wasn't responding at all. I hated it. I literally, I bought it. I bought a physical copy of it because I'm like, I'm going to really put some time into this. And I didn't finish a single mission. I was just like, this is so unenjoyable. And this is the start. If it gets any harder than this, I'm going to have a bad time. So I stopped. It was a real shame. Like, it had everything I think it needed, but unfortunately, too many Vita games were like, we have to use the gimmicks of the system, and the gimmicks are like the worst part of the Vita. It's kind of weird.
It did have Lubu in a Pepsi Next ad in Japan, which is incredible. It's just him just like slam jamming a bottle of Pepsi Next while looking very displeased.
Mm-hmm. Jumping to the other handheld of the time, this is a game I played for a very limited amount of time. Dynasty Warriors Versus in April 2012 for the 3DS. I couldn't find the actual director. The idea was for it to be a competitive game, so it sort of calls back to Dynasty Warriors 1. You work with a team to capture these fields and these very small maps. It has better touchscreen minigames than Next, where it's like hit all the symbols on the screen versus like, do specific finger sweeping patterns and stuff like that. You have a character creation, but you need to get points from playing levels to unlock parts and movesets. It's got like a fantasy story where Zhuge Liang is asking you to recreate battles from history, and the cast only has 6 members from each faction. It's a competitive Dynasty Warriors game. It's not exclusively fighting other guys, but that part's bad. It's bad.
It's following the time-honored tradition of Dynasty Warriors games on Nintendo handhelds not being incredibly good.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like the enemy players work like when you fight an AI officer in the game. It's like fighting another player, so they have like some of the like more invincibility and like they use more of their abilities to get out of trouble more often. It's just annoying. We mentioned the big open fields where you have any choice of what to do. And these are tiny maps where it's like, I mean, you better get on the objective, I guess. That's all there is to it.
One of those things where it's like, the 3DS, it is fondly remembered, but not as well as, like, say, the regular DS or the Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
It was vindicated by history. This was not because of Dynasty Warriors Versus.
It wasn't even the gimmick, because the gimmick was 3D on that, and it used it, I think, but nothing to really look at, so I guess that gets around the 3D gimmick issue. But with that, it's weird because now it doesn't feel like it as much, but when it came out, Dynasty Warriors 8 was huge. Dynasty Warriors 8 came out in February of 2013 for the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. It was directed by Atsushi Miyauchi. Okay, so here's what makes it like so much bigger. Now, the weapon alignment system has been added, so now not only do you have the 2 weapon types to switch between, but each individual weapon type has heaven, earth, and man. And these operate in a rock, paper, scissors situation where a weapon that is of the opposing type to an enemy will reduce this like blue gauge above their health bar. And when you reduce it to 0, you can perform an attack called the Storm Rush. That'll do a lot of damage. Whereas if you're using a weapon that's like you're opposed by their type, you won't drain the gauge. They won't even get stunned by a lot of your attacks. This, I think, helped mainstream people because they had a reason explicitly to switch weapons. Whereas, like, I think people who just like doing cool combos in 7 really hated it. And I used to be on the side of the former, but I think I've come around to the latter, that I don't really like because you have to manage 3 times the weapons.
What I always did is I just picked 2 elements, bought 2 of the same, and I would just switch to whichever one was needed at the given time. And so, like, to me, it was like kind of a non-issue. But like, I could definitely understand why people would dislike that.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem, but then sometimes it's like, well, I think it'd be fun for this character. Like, I want to use, like, Jurong's boomerang and then, like, a katana. It's like, well, I just got a new boomerang that's, like, way better than the other ones, and it's the man type. It's funny to say out of context. I just read
The man type.
The man boomerang. And then it's like, well, what about Jotai's weapon, which is, like, I thought it was a katana. I guess sometimes they do say it is a katana, but it's like, it's a big odachi, but it's actually... There's a Chinese weapon called a Janmadao, which is like a big curved sword. So it did exist, but I mean, quick drawing a gigantic sword in any case is not historical or humanly possible. But it's like, yeah, what if I want to use Jotai's weapon and the boomerang? It's like, oh, I also only have the man type for that. So I got two men, and that's useless to me, unlike people who are writing fanfic about the characters within Blue Kingdoms.
And also everyone else is using earth type weapons, so I'm just totally fucked.
Yeah. Like, so it's just like those like little annoyances. And especially for me, like, I hate having big inventories build up over time, but it also meant every time I cleared a stage, I'd go into the menus and be like, all right, now what am I keeping? I'm just going to have one of each type for each individual weapon. So time to scroll through that and clean it all up. And like, it's, you know, obviously you don't have to do that, but then you get logged up with tons of weapons. I could take it or leave it. I mean, there are people who like made modded saves for the console versions that removed all the typing off of the weapons. I mean, I guess I could see why. I think maybe there should have been something to get around it, or like an option, or maybe a chaos difficulty ignores weapon typing or something.
That said, though, in just about every other aspect about Dynasty Warriors 8, it felt a lot smoother than 7. Like, it felt like they took 7 and they just kind of refined it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they brought back weapon abilities. We got air charge attacks back. You got an additional R1 Muso attack. You also got air Muso attacks. If you hold the horse call button, you will just get on your horse when they get to you, which is great. The maps are really well designed. Like, they're some of the best maps in the series. They added alternate endings to missions, although because of this, story presentation does kind of take a little bit of a hit.
Yeah. Like, my favorite example is the death of Xiahou Yuan. In 7, it's like he's holding Huang Zhong prisoner, who's like the expert archer from Shu, and he's the expert archer in Wei. Huang Zhong like breaks his bindings and grabs a bow, and they both go to shoot each other at the same time, but then Xiahou Yuan's bow snaps as he goes to pull it. And so it goes in slow motion, like, why now, as he gets hit by an arrow. In Dynasty Warriors 8, at the end of that same battle, they're just all talking. Huang Zhong rolls up on a horse and just beats him straight in the chest with an arrow and rides off and kills him.
It's just fucking Stone Cold shoots him to death. Like,
it's so weird, because it's like, why isn't anyone else doing anything? It looks like they kind of just like, what's that all about? And then after he kills, like, what was that all about?
The only way it could have been funnier is if when he got shot, he was just instantly transported to bed in a white funeral gown.
Yeah, that is one of the funny things about, you know, because Romance of the Three Kingdoms, they romanticize some things in history, but also at some points, like, yeah, this guy was on his way to achieve total dominance of the land.
And then he died.
Yeah, then he got sick and he died. Like, sorry.
Cao Cao, on his way to nearly conquer all of China, gets sick and starts to die. Gives his kingdom to Xiahou Duan, who subsequently also dies.
God, it's good. It's so funny. Yeah, but the reason why that cutscene is less detailed is then they need to make it so if you complete all the mission goals to have Xiahou Yuan survive, he needs to be able to just get back up, and you can't do like a complicated scene of that. I mean, I guess you could, but it'd cost a lot more. Actually, I'm fine, is how that cutscene goes. And that's kind of how a lot of them are. Like, the only what if I actually put time into was the one for the Louis Bu campaign they added in Extreme Legends. Because that one's like, you need to do, like, you can see the one-to-one of like, okay, I helped this person out, and then I helped this person out so that they owed me a favor later, so that then when the time comes that he'd normally be doomed, instead he's built up all these connections that allow him to succeed. So like these what-if routes, like they give you a new set of missions once you accomplish all the goals to get the alternate mission endings, and then you get some alternate missions that play out to a new ending where everything goes perfectly, and you know, these people in this era who, you know, didn't win historically do actually win. And I think in the case of the Kingdom of Jin, they do win historically, but like in this case, it's hey, all my family members also made it to the end.
Yeah, the era immediately following the Three Kingdoms period, the rise of the Kingdom of Jin and everything, is a very blood-soaked period of history. Like, a lot of people don't make it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is saying something, because the Three Kingdoms period is also really blood-soaked, but like, man, that last bit, pretty bad.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of strange because they say like, yeah, the Age of Heroes is over. So now it's just like, who's qualified? Can you do this? No? Okay. Fuck me, I guess.
The thing about the Three Kingdoms period is that a lot of the people who were like prominent generals survived to old age and died in bed, pretty much. It's like in the Kingdom of Jin, a lot of people explicitly do not like. I guess that's what you get when you solve a basically century-long war in the span of like 5 or 6 years. Like,
yeah. So one thing that's missing that's been in the series for quite a long time is the voice actor Douglas Lee. If you watched Cowboy Bebop, he voices Fad, Jet's partner. But he's just like a really pleasing voice. He also voices Huang Gai in the games with like a more brusque tone. He's been narrating these games this whole time. This version has these interstitial scenes with like text, but he doesn't say anything.
completely silent.
It's a huge loss. Huge loss.
It's not as good. That was a big part of Dynasty Warriors 7's presentation, was the like, you know, you would have a cutscene and then it would zoom out to a sort of map of China and it would sort of give you more large scale context, and it was Douglas Lee narrating it. It's like, man, I miss that.
Yeah, he's got like a very pleasant, like, it's a very pleasing voice, but it's also authoritative. Like, it's the kind of thing you'd want someone to narrate something historical. It also would have been nice on the Vita because like the subtitles are readable, but they're a lot smaller, you know? Like, it would have been easier if I could hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
Also, I'm mostly noting this for just one thing, but like they add something called ambition mode, which is like the conquest mode in the previous games. Like, you just go out on maps and recruit more guys and build up your base. The reason you're doing this is to construct something called the Tongchitai. It's like this palace tower that'll bring the emperor to your side. Like, you construct it to prove that, like, oh, I can build up resources to house and protect the emperor. I bring that up because no one says Tongchitai in the game, and it's not a word that comes up much. Turns out there's one Chinese film that was called Tongchitai, and they had a press event. So I listened. I like had a guess of how it was pronounced from watching 100 episodes of War of the Three Kingdoms, and then when I watched the press event, they said it early on. So it was a lot of effort to find it, but it turns out my guess was correct anyway. So I kind of didn't have to do it.
Vindicated.
But yeah, so that one's fun because it's sort of like the free mode. There's a free mode equivalent, but also ambition mode is the sort of like, I want to just play a character and I want to get more people on my team. It fills in that thing I said free mode was interesting, but it's not a campaign in and of itself. So this solves that for me. Though it is very funny because there's actually another major officer in the era called Zhou Tai. Just had the same name, but he was also notable enough to be in the game. So when I started a mission, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get Zhou Tai. And it was like a generic strategist. I'm like, what is this? Is this a glitch? And I'm like, oh, right. People have the same name. Oops. Well, this sucks.
Should have used style names.
Yeah.
Would have added that little extra flair.
Yeah, I think sometimes those come up in the game, so it can be confusing because they don't ever explain it. Like, a style name is just like a courtesy, like, special name for someone. Cao Cao would be like Sao Meng De. The way I explained it to someone once was, imagine it's your screen name. It's not like your official like birth name, but it's like the name you go by online, and it might change over time, maybe based on like your shifting life. You're like, I actually want to go by a different name now. That's kind of what a courtesy name is. But yeah, they'll bring it up sometimes, and it's strange. Because then you're like, wait, is Sao Amon someone else? Like, no. So that was February of 2013. But in November of 2013, they released Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends. PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. I wrote 350 here, which is conceptually funny for a console. I guess that's like the arcade edition. And also PlayStation Vita and PC. Like I mentioned before, the Vita version, it actually ran really, really poorly at first, but then they did a big patch and it mostly runs okay, except during the Battle of Kirby where a bunch of boats are on fire, and then it runs like ass again. Like I mentioned previously, the director of 8 and Extreme Legends is Atsushi Miyauchi. Interestingly, he's a game developer, but he's also a voice actor, so they added the character of Eugene to the Kingdom of Wei here. And I think it's kind of a strange vibe that you're the director of the game, and you also voice the character who threatens to execute people for stepping out of line and not being disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job, but it's just most of that guy's lines are about executing people.
Yeah, it's it does affect the vibes somewhat.
It also adds it adds quite a few characters. It adds Juran, who's the person from the Kingdom of Wu who pulled off a big fire attack. So I guess they decided he should have a fiery personality. Like, I don't think it has anything to do with his historical personality at all. Fa Zheng, who's a strategist for Shu, who makes up for the fact that most of the people in that kingdom are either nice or forthright. So they added a guy who's basically just kind of evil, but he otherwise likes the kingdom of Shu, who the benevolent kingdom. Chen Gong, who is a strategist who was familiar to Cao Cao and then eventually became Louis Bu's strategist. They kind of play him as a sniveling, conniving guy.
I think in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, that is more in line with how he was in that, but in Records is more of a Chen Gong was just a guy who picked the wrong horse.
Yeah, and I mean, in War of the Three Kingdoms, that was my favorite version, is that he was actually
quite respectful.
Yeah, and he was friends with Cao Cao because he believes Cao Cao, he's the one who can save the capital from the corruption. But by spending time with him, he was like, this guy's crazy.
This guy's a fucking dick, man.
The reason he can do it is because he has no morals. Everything is cold logic for him. So then when eventually Louis Bu loses, Cao Cao's always I always wondered what happened to you. I valued our friendship a lot. I will release you. And then Chen Gong says, I would rather be executed than have your mercy. And Cao's I'd be really sad to lose you. And so Chen Gong's then definitely execute me. So good.
It's fucking awesome. That is a really good scene in that show.
And we joked earlier, it's hey, someone was mentioned in just one sentence, and I think I'll make a character out of that. Louis Bu's daughter, who is just mentioned in one sentence as Louis Bu had a daughter. It's not even a whole sentence. It's part of the sentence that they mentioned that.
Did not have a name, becomes the character Lu Lingqi.
Yeah. Who is neat, but also I was kind of confused because Extreme Legends added this Louis Bu scenario. If you play his regular not what if story, Lu Lingqi shows up near the end. If you do the what if story, I guess she's never born because she doesn't show up at all.
Sometimes you got time to start a family, but sometimes it's about battle.
It was a little weird because they made a big deal. I was check out this cool new character. I mean, she's fun to use.
She's got a cool design, too.
Yeah. In Dynasty Warriors 6, Louis Bu had it was a 4-sided halberd thing. It was a big throwing star, basically. But then they gave him his halberd back in 7 and 8. Still with a ridiculous moveset, but it's a more practical weapon. So they gave that weapon to Lu Lingqi. Also, now everyone gets a second EX attack with their preferred weapon. The challenge mode is back from the other Extreme Legends games, but now when you beat it, you get weapons that have unique abilities to that challenge. So even if the weapon itself isn't that useful, you can use one of the blacksmiths in the game to take the unique ability off the weapon and put it onto yours.
This is all sounding really good, but Sid, I regret to inform you it's November of 2013, and that means DLC is back.
Yeah, the complete edition.
And a whole lot of it. A whole lot of DLC.
The one I bought on Vita was Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends Complete Edition, which is a very long title. It's also not true, because there were 21 DLC packs for that. It was a lot of money. I bought like 2 packs. It was way too expensive.
We should note, that this PC version came out in 2013, way before the PC version of Dynasty Warriors 7. The controller support is the same. They didn't fix anything in 5 years.
So 7, I think that they released a PC version in non-English speaking regions that wasn't a complete edition to some extent, I think, and they didn't update it for 8. But it's just like, but why? I don't understand. Like, it's pretty bad. It feels bad again. And reassigning controls is a pain because it's one of those things where, like, if you reassign a directional input, like, you can't double up. Like, so I was playing on like a PC handheld, and I couldn't make it so that up on the analog stick and up on the D-pad moved up on a menu. You can't do it. Like, like what? Luckily, they made a definitive edition eventually in December of 2018. And that came out on the Nintendo Switch and the Microsoft Store.
But if you're going to play Dynasty Warriors 8 and you got a Switch, there's a 1 in 2 chance you got a Switch, honestly. This is the version to play. It's really good. Performance usually in the ballpark of 60 frames per second. Not always, but it's the Nintendo Switch. When it says it's the definitive edition, it's got everything.
Even at this point, I think the extra DLC packs cost more than a secondhand Nintendo Switch, so,
I wish they would put it on Steam.
So in November of 2014, they released Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, directed by Hiroshi Noda. 7 Empires added a strategist for Shu called Jishu. 8 followed suit by adding Shinyu, a Wei strategist, who's basically like if they took the regular tactician model and made him hot. Like, it's literally just that. That's his character design.
Yeah. It
does share DLC with Extreme Legends, so like if you bought some of that, it's still in Empires. The questing you can do by yourself is separate from doing territory raids and invasions, so you can do something without committing evil acts, I guess. You could like do helpful things. But yeah, it runs kind of bad on PS3, I noticed, like pretty bad. It maxes out at 30 FPS until you die, at which point it shoots up to 60 FPS. I will say this late in the game, we're not quite in like the diminishing returns era, but 8 does look quite a bit better than 7 in terms of graphic detail. And it has more features and stuff that I liked, but I think I liked playing 7 Empires better overall. Yeah, that's not all that was going on in 2014.
I should note that there's one thing we need to talk about way back. Keep in mind that 2014 is about to have something really important happen. But back in 2002, this little known game company, you may have heard of them, Capcom, they filed a patent just 2 years after the series really got going. Because in 2001, that was when Dynasty Warriors 3 had come out. They had filed this patent about using game discs as unlocks for content. Capcom had filed this patent, but they didn't bother using it. But they sure as shit noticed Koei was doing it.
Yeah, so in July of 2014, they filed a lawsuit with the Osaka District Court over Koei Tecmo using the system. It also included a patent for using rumble to indicate when enemies are nearby. Capcom claimed it greatly contributed to the sales of Koei Tecmo titles. The only one I can think of is Fatal Frame, like your controller vibrates when there's a ghost nearby, which I don't think greatly contributed to Fatal Frame's sales.
That's what Fatal Frame is known for.
The control, like, I think people like it because it's like a good horror game. It's like a novel main gameplay mechanic, which is not the controller rumbling. I note this because Konami released Metal Gear Solid 2 in 2001, a year before this patent was filed, which included an item called the anti-personnel sensor. When you equip it, your controller rumbles to detect nearby enemies. I just think that's fun. That's like a fun detail. about this court case.
Yeah.
So Capcom sued for about $9.43 million US dollars and between 5 to 10%, I think, depending on the title, in licensing fees from Tecmo's net profit and suspension of selling further mixed joy titles. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Capcom in September of 2019. Koei Tecmo attempted to appeal this decision, and that was dismissed in December of 2020. Both these patents had expired by the end of the ruling anyway. Mixed joy had been dropped in favor of doing DLC and definitive editions. But yeah, I can't believe Koei lost this case. It seemed like, Capcom didn't use it. The major part of the case was based on something that already had been done. But they didn't do mixed joy after that, and it's just very funny that they did this thing to make you buy 2 copies of the game, and they lost millions of dollars doing it down the line.
It's just fun to think about. And then Capcom didn't even give us Sengoku Basara.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, Sengoku Basara is Capcom's version of Dynasty Warriors games. It's set in feudal Japan. It's much more over the top, wild, wacky, has a crazy combo system, and they stopped releasing them. They released a bunch, very highly regarded ones for the PS4, never brought them west, and then they had a big anniversary event where they announced a mobile game. It's just insult upon insult from Capcom. But this element of mixed joy is actually important because they shifted to a DLC season pass model for their next game. Dynasty Warriors 9, released in February of 2018 for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, directed by Atsushi Miyauchi again. Dynasty Warriors goes open world. It doesn't work.
They really shot for it, and it did not pay off.
The first thing I noticed about this game that they mentioned was we're going to do a Mandarin dub. And it's interesting because okay, finally this game has a Mandarin dub. It's set in China. That's cool. But China's become such a force in gaming that now I'm so used to seeing or hearing Mandarin dubs in games. And a lot of these newer Chinese games have very high budgets and production quality. So Dynasty Warriors 9 seems like a very cheap Chinese game.
I can't really speak to the quality of the Mandarin dub, but I remember it being pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm not a person who speaks Mandarin, so it should be bad. I don't know. What is incredible, though, is that finally voice acting is back, which is to say, back in 2002. The English voice acting is all over the place. It is really kind of something to behold.
Yeah, some of it's just mischaracterized. Louis Boo's now gone from a brusque, angry guy to kind of sounding like a hunk. He's like, can anybody provide me with a decent challenge? It's are you trying to come on to me? But then, Shang Jiao's voice actor, mwah, oh, excellent.
Put 3,000% into it. It's so good.
If you haven't heard the English voice acting, the quality of it was so poor that people are like, oh my god, is this a non-union job? It is union. TV actors who had little cards saying what their line was and some context, but not enough. People are using the wrong tone of voice all the time. The pronunciations are all most of the time they still say Cao Cao, but then in one scene where Cao Zhu is being inducted into the family, Cao Cao's voice actor says the cow family. Also, it's not a voice acted line, but one of the random villagers makes a Skyrim arrow in the knee reference, which is just come on now.
Yeah, this game released in 2018.
So this had like we mentioned 2 season passes. It had long-term post-update support, so the game launched in a very rough technical state. Not only did it improve technically to be actually pretty acceptable, they also added online play and local split-screen co-op, which weren't even promised features of the game from the outset. They just added these in post-launch updates that weren't even part of the paid season pass. These were free updates.
Which we should note is incredibly out of character for Koei.
Yeah, the season passes were some new characters and some new weapons. And the weapons were interesting. They all had individual gimmicks. That's notable because they redid the combat system again, the flow attack system. So your regular combo is a flow attack. There are no charge attack finishers anymore, but you can do trigger attacks, this stun or launch, and you have a special move that needs to recharge over time. When you do these moves, your flow attack on enemies in whatever the state you hit them with the trigger attack changes based on that. So there's some skill to knowing like the best way to do this, but there's no pressure to do this well in the entire game. The time pressure is almost totally gone. It was confusing when I played Lu Lingqi's story that I was just wandering around the open world for hours, and then all of a sudden I hear Chen Gong being like, I guess my road ends here, and he dies and I have to reset. I guess he was still doing a battle on his own and went into a place with a bunch of enemy officers. That was very unusual for the game. For the most part, you're free to explore ancient China in a map that's not very attractive. Sometimes it can be, but most of the time it's really not. It's very flat and plain.
There's just not a lot going on in anywhere that isn't a major fight. When you get into like the cities and stuff, those are pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're just out in between places, it's pretty boring.
Enemy density during major battles is pretty high, but then random patrols pretty small. You can find clusters of bandits in between spaces and maps, and sometimes they'll have like a really high level guy in there. They brought evading back from Dynasty Warriors 6, and they try to have like a more detailed combat system, so like enemies will do windups for attacks. You can also encounter like wild animals like bears and tigers and stuff and fight them, but like the hitboxes and animations just aren't really that clean, so trying to play it more skillfully than like a traditional Musou game doesn't really work out that well. They brought the bow and arrow back, but now its best function is that it can instantly kill enemies who aren't aware of your presence, which means the best way to level is to jack it up to the highest difficulty, go to one of those like outside areas where there's a big cluster of bandits, buy exploding arrows and blow them all up and get shitloads of experience and run away. Yeah, I think it's a game that's actually important to their development because they had to develop the engine, like improve it a lot. And they also had to try out a bunch of gameplay things that didn't pay off in Dynasty Warriors 9, but like one of the post-launch things they had is like, oh, enemies will do these wind-up moves and you have to use a specific trigger attack to counter it. And there's a very similar system in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Part of the thing that makes it more interesting is that these are abilities on cooldown in that game, so you want to actually manage your resources, unlike Dynasty Warriors 9 where you can just spam.
Where you can just absolutely, you can just do whatever you have to.
I think what they were trying to do is make Romance of the Three Kingdoms the single player action RPG, but it's still Dynasty Warriors where you play as set characters with linear stories. Like, you can go out and quote-unquote conquer every base in China if you want during one chapter, but then when you complete the objective, it's back to the way it was anyway. It just doesn't really make sense for Dynasty Warriors. And so when they announced Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, I'm like, oh, all this life simulation stuff from Romance of the Three Kingdoms in the side series that's more inspired by it. So structurally, it'll work a lot better. Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires came out in December of 2021 for the PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch, surprisingly. It was directed by Takayuki Kurita and Masatomo Oba. First of all, they improved the engine enough that it went from a game that runs poorly on the PS4 to a game that runs poorly on the Nintendo Switch, but that's really impressive that it runs at all. It uses a cut-down version of Neo 2's character creator, which is one of the best character creators ever, but they cut it down too much.
On top of that, on top of turning down the character creator from Neo 2, they kind of trimmed down the open world, which is like the thing I would have wanted them to like really double down on in Empires.
It's so confusing. It's like, it feels like, why is there even an open world at all in this at this point? Because it's just random bandits, not even like really high level ones mixed in there. Random wild animals, again, no high level ones mixed in there. You can go to these places on the map where there are towns, but there's nothing there. I went to a house I bought in Dynasty Warriors 9. There's no option to buy it or be there or do anything with it. Also 9, like I mentioned, Chen Gong went off on his own and like there were troops fighting all across the map. It was kind of like the game Mounted Blade. And it would have been perfect for this, and they took it out too.
It's one of those things where, like, even sticking within Koei's wheelhouse, way earlier on they had put out a game called Blade Storm.
Yeah.
which was a simulation action esports game based on the 100 Years' War. And in that game, as the days go on, there's stuff happening in corners of the map where you could not possibly get from one place unless you started closer to it. And so, like, they could have had it in Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, where, like, some things are just happening out of your reach, and the whole reason to expand your empire, aside from winning when you get when you unite China, is like you could have had it so that you could have had more zone of influence.
Yeah,
there was a lot of tactical decisions that they could have implemented in Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires that they just left on the table.
Yeah, it's such a huge bummer, because I think, once again, like 6 Empires improved a lot of things on the base game, 9 Empires improves as well. There's a sprint in the game that used stamina, so did evading, and you could get like air dashes, like mid-air evades pretty much. They removed stamina. Now you start sprinting automatically after you move for a little bit. You can evade on the ground freely, and you have 4 air dashes all the time. Now, though, army battles are just invasions and invasion defense. That's all there is. There are different maps, and I think it was fun enough for like one run of a scenario, but there are people who are like reasonably, I think, upset because it is, the same kind of fight. But because of these battles being more limited in scope, you now have to act faster to keep your army safe. Meaning now, like I mentioned before, trigger and flow attacks, like there's some skill to learning how they work. Now it's actually valuable because you want to take things down in an expedient manner. Enemies will sometimes engage these stratagems where they're like, oh, we're going to unleash like a big mounted cavalry attack unless you defeat the officer who's initiating this stratagem in time. All this is like actually like pretty good, but it's just like the game is unfortunately too expensive and too threadbare to really recommend. Also, like when you recruit officers, you get a little pop-up of their bio, so it's easier to keep people straight, which I like quite a bit. All the DLC weapons they add through Dynasty Warriors 9 are available right away, more affordable that way compared to the season passes. You can equip all the weapons. Your character's favored weapon will affect their unique trigger attack and also their Muso attack. Also, like the armor system, where like you layer different armor pieces together, but there aren't enough pieces. So I made like 2 outfits I liked for my character, which is way less than I was able to put together in Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires. Not as much variety as that. It's kind of a bum note to be stuck with for a while. And the other Dynasty Warriors media that came out that year didn't really help. July 2021, released in theaters and on streaming. Dynasty Warriors, the movie, directed by Ray Chow Hin-young.
Oh, I never saw the Dynasty Warriors movie.
But you did see the trailer.
Did see the trailer.
Which had some bold claims.
Did you know that Muso attacks are residual energy from the Big Bang?
That's how it starts. That's how the trailer starts, is that people can use this energy that's from the residual energy from the Big Bang. And like that was actually most of what the trailer was. Like there was very little action in it. So most of it was just this whole new thing. I did watch it. It starts out really good because it starts with the Peach Garden Trio from the King Mushu, Liu Bei, Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu, fighting in the Yellow Turban Rebellion. So it's them fighting a wizard. The costuming is like pretty spot on. The music's there. It's just so dumb. It's so good. And then when that scene ends, I watched War of the Three Kingdoms, and this felt like a very cut down movie version of that. Instead of going to the next big battle as fast as they can, they play out the drama, but it doesn't feel grounded enough, because like Cao Cao in War of the Three Kingdoms is an older man, and like he's dressed like the other advisors in the Han court. In this, everyone looks normal, and then there's this younger, way hotter guy in this outfit that's totally different and stands out from everyone else. It's not a video game. You don't have to do this. Just give him the same outfit the other people have for this scene. Also, the Peach Garden Trio meets a mystical lady who says that the reason Cao Cao is so successful is he has a weapon made from astral ore, which is what lets you do super moves, even though they all did Muso attacks basically in the intro. Ignore that part. you need a weapon made from astral ore, and it needs to be coated in the blood of lots of guys, which is also why Louis Boo's so strong, is that his weapon is just coated in so much blood, and he can do so many super moves. So for the final battle, the Peach Garden Trio realizes this, and so Guan Yu's solution is, why don't we cut our chests with our own weapons so we get our own blood on it? And that'll power us up enough to beat Louis Boo. And by beat him, I mean he retreats. And the story ends before Dongzhuo's even defeated. The second story arc.
Here's what you need to know about Romance of the Three Kingdoms. First big event is the Yellow Turban Rebellion, followed by the uprising of Dongzhuo as a feudal lord. And Dongzhuo is like a huge threat, so to end it before he's even defeated is kind of leaving things open.
Yeah, I don't know if they thought they were getting a sequel or something, but no, they're not. No, they're not.
They're not.
Also, Zhang Fei is in brownface.
Oof.
It looks bad. They didn't even do a good job as far as brownface goes. They're like, this guy's more rough and tumble. You know what that means? Brown.
We gotta brown him up. We gotta put him in the oven for a little bit.
Originally, this is where when I first planned the podcast where we're going to end it, but then January 2025, Dynasty Warriors Origins comes out. PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, PC, directed by Kazutoshi Sekiguchi and Mitsuhiro Oshima. So they were gonna make Dynasty Warriors 10 as like an expansion of 7, you know, like what they did after Dynasty Warriors 6 fell through. They go back to the last really popular one and build off of it. And they wanted to slow it down though, to bring it back to the tactical focus of the older titles instead of being a flashier action game. But they did want to have like a world map and also have better contextualization for the Three Kingdoms era. But they decided to instead go back to the beginning in a different sense. Instead of making a game with a full cast, you're going to play as a new character who meets and befriends all these characters. And to pull this off, they got something they haven't really had in a while: money.
And lots of it.
Oh my god.
And y'all, I need you to understand, I have talked about stuff being the real shit. Dynasty Warriors Origin is the realest shit there has ever been.
I really cannot emphasize enough. People who are put off by the fact that you only play as one character, I feel like you have unreasonable demands considering how much they pulled off here. It's crazy how good this game is. Genuinely, I cannot believe they pulled off something that does so much so well.
I can't think of many things it does poorly. Everything about Dynasty Warriors Origins is phenomenal. It is an encapsulation of everything that makes Musou so good.
First of all, when they released the demo, it worked really well, which is great. Koei's had a lot of problems with PC ports in the past. The combat system has been rethought. Again, it's not the charge combat system, but this time they replaced it with a good system instead of a not that good one that they didn't think out.
Yeah, if anything, the system in Dynasty Warriors Origins feels more like a refinement. You know, they have evolved it.
It's worth noting, like we mentioned, playing on difficulties and like how they want you to start on easy. You know, that's confusing. Like for some people, it doesn't make sense, right? Oh, normal should be the normal difficulty, but it's actually not the best way to start a lot of them, especially PS2 era Dynasty Warriors games. And this, they actually fixed it in the other direction. You can start Dynasty Warriors Origins on hard, and it's harder, but it's not just like, oh, you die in one hit.
They didn't just crank the numbers. They tell you straight up, if you want to start on hard, here's what to expect. Enemies will hit harder, but not like to a degree that is absurd. Reactions from enemies will be faster. Parries and everything will be a little bit tighter. But for the most part, it is what you would expect from a hard mode in a video game.
Your fellow officer's in trouble. On lower difficulties, you'd be like, let me just take care of this first. On hard, unless you're almost done taking care of this, you better get over there. They're gonna die.
You get there or you're going to lose.
So now there's like a regular light attack combo and you have a heavy attack, but this is now modified by different things depending on the weapon. So like maybe holding it down does something. blocking it while doing a heavy attack does something different. Doing a heavy attack after dodging does something different. Doing a heavy attack mid-combo versus doing one on its own. The weapon inputs are mostly unified, but now they all have different gimmicks so that you still play them differently. The trigger attack system is gone, and now you have martial arts on your 4 face button slots. These require bravery to pull off now. So instead of being on separate cooldowns or anything, you build up a separate meter by hitting enemies or perfect dodges right when an enemy attacks.
Parries, I think, as well.
Parries build it up, but like about as much as like doing hits would. Like the hits you do from the parry builds up. And that's actually one of the choices you make, is like if you parry an enemy attack, you'll turn them aside and stun them and you can wail on them. But if you do perfect dodges, you build up bravery for martial arts that can sometimes be like really strong. You have Muso attacks, but you don't do them as often, but they have a much bigger effect now. You eventually unlock something called War God Rage. You build your Muso to a certain point and you can do Muso attacks. You build your Muso further and you can unlock a Rage mode. And later you'll unlock, if you fill the meter all the way, you'll get an even more powered up Rage mode. Where in that case, you have technically infinite bravery, but the moves drain an equivalent amount of the Muso gauge, which lets you spam some moves like a lot more than you could if you just had to use bravery. And then when the meter empties or you do a Muso attack, you'll do the Rage Muso, which is an even bigger hit. Additionally, you have a partner character with you sometimes, and once their meter fills up over time during the mission, you can switch out to them. Early in the game, you're very strong and capable, but these characters are like on a whole other level. Like they're just better than you at the beginning. And like, so you bring them in, they have bravery gauge, they have health, they have a Rage mode and a Rage Muso. Then you'll switch back to your character after they do their Rage Muso. There's your character's ability called Eyes of the Sacred Bird, which one lets you like see certain details on the battlefield more easily. Like you can see everyone's health bars and names around you while you slow down the action. In certain missions, it'll let you like find hidden things or ambushes. But they also applied something that's kind of been missing from the series. You have a squad of bodyguards with you, like your own unit. You also have tactics for them. Charge the enemy, fire a flurry of arrows. But like the strategy tomes in 6, these can be affected by where you are. So if you fire arrows on someone from up high, it will cause a dramatic success, which will drastically weaken the enemies more than just doing straight up damage. So you can jump down there and then they'll be easier to kill. Like when their morale goes down, you see their health bars actually shrink. These are also on their own like timers, so like that fills up over time, so you're kind of working your way up to it, and more potent tactics take longer to fill up, but you know, the payoff is more worth it. Like a cavalry charge can like tear through a bunch of guys, but it'll take 240 seconds or something to fill up, so you can't just spam it nonstop. And that's how everything works. Like everything is so integrated, like it controls really well, and you have all these different elements that it just feels good. It looks great also. It looks really good.
It feels like the most tightly designed Muso game there has probably ever been. And we've only talked about the mainline Dynasty Warriors series.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some spinoffs of the Muso series that have been like incredible. Just to name one off the top of the dome, if you ever get the chance, play Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. That game is amazing. This one is on like an entirely different level. It feels like they started from the very bottom up and they said, let's take everything that has been great about the series from the get-go and refine it to a point of perfection.
The demo was the Battle of Sirshri Gate, which was right before the Battle of Hulo Gate, where the famous line, "Do not pursue Lubu," comes from. So in this one, though, like normally the battle ends after you defeat Huazhong. But in the demo, they had it so that Lubu would pop out after you finished the mission, and you had a boss fight against him. And as I was playing the demo, I'm like, okay, when he does this, like I gotta do this. I'm like, I'm learning a boss's moveset in a Dynasty Warriors game? Holy shit, I never would have imagined the day. Like, it's obvious in a way, but it's one of those things that's like obvious in retrospect. Before they announced Dynasty Warriors Origins, I was thinking I would end this episode by saying they've got to decide on what they're going to focus on, but they actually just defied my expectations and improved everything. I mean, I guess like you play as a set character, so it has those weaknesses where like they're not personally that interesting. and everyone just seems to love them for no reason. But that's actually good in its own way, because you don't get to create the character. He's a set design.
But like, because you are playing as sort of an outside context character, you get a lot of unique and unusual insights into characters that you wouldn't normally get too much of a lens on in other Russo games. Also, everybody wants that twink obliterated, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's comical. Like, at some points it's like, you know, I mentioned like, oh, these two guys are talking to each other passionately, is it gay? There's some dialogue in here that's like, it couldn't be anything else other than literally they're gonna have sex after this. So in an interview Tomohiko Sho did with Den Fami Nico Gamer, that boy love vibe, that's what the term for gay romance is, that BL vibe was not something I intended at all. Honestly, I'd say sorry I wasn't keeping a close enough eye on things. I'm not saying the team did anything wrong, of course, but honestly speaking, yeah, that's kind of what happened. I came up with the core outline and world building for the game, and we were aligned on major points. However, I left the actual scenario to the writing team. He also understands that a lot of fans liked it, so like he laughed and added, if we do a sequel, I think I'll personally check all the text, although the team will probably hate that. There's a scene with Louis Boo where he says he wants to dominate your character's body and soul as an ally.
I can't take this any other way.
If I had made my character, it's like, I feel like you're like being a little presumptuous saying this like a lady character. But the fact that it is definitively a beautiful twink who says it. And then a character who, like, I guess it's treated as a reveal. This character is normally depicted as an old man doctor, even more beautiful than your character. Your character is like a manly man by comparison to this guy. Everyone is more attractive. Even Dongchuo. It's like, if you like big guys.
This is a game for people who like men. The women are also hot.
But even that's like, Yue Ying is just like, I want to show you my device. It's like, oh, she's going to peg him now. It's like...
They made the comical yellow turban leader guy, they made him wicked hot too. It's like,
yeah. It's like this funny wizard guy is now, it's like, I just want to do what's best for the people. Have I gone on the wrong path? It's like, oh my god.
No, don't. You're so sexy.
There is something that they didn't quite nail.
Or they nailed it so hard.
So the English dub, they cast different people from the usual bunch, but there's still a lot of notable people in here. Like, you know, Elias Defex's Adam Jensen from Deus Ex is Eugene in this. William C. Stephens is Guan Yu. He's also Rude in the Final Fantasy VII Remake games. He's Brad in the Dead Rising 1 remake. They cast correctly, I think. Everyone is cast appropriately. Sometimes, though, it feels like they're trying to match lip flaps and are pausing in a strange, unnatural way. Not all the time. But also, the pronunciation for some Chinese names is more correct, and some of it is more wrong than it's ever been, and it's massively inconsistent. Character to character, scene to scene, it's all over the place.
It's everything I could have hoped for.
Now that Sun Jian is gone, we must rely on his heir, Swoon Sa. It's like they have the same last name. Why would you pronounce it differently?
I knew it was going to be something great in the tutorial mission where one of the guys attacking you refers to you and Guan Yu as brigands.
Yeah, it's not just the Chinese now, but also the English words are not pronounced correctly. Like, you listen to like a town gossip at one point, and someone says, wow, she must be a gallant warrior. You gotta pick one. Is she gallant or valiant? She's gallant isn't the word.
I was just sitting there in my chair playing that tutorial mission, and I'm just like, we are so fucking bad. Oh my god.
And then, like, you know, William C. Stephens, the solid voice actor, so I think he just slipped up. For a line where he's supposed to say, we can ascertain his motives, it's like, we can ascertain his motives. It's like, oh, come on. You couldn't do another take? Like, Jesus Christ.
David Lodge is in there, right? And he messes some stuff up.
Oh, yeah. And some people, it's like, they do that thing where, you know, they try to put some oomph on, like, non-English stuff. Like, David Lodge is Chung Pu. That's the order of Sun Jian. It's like, well, you're right, but I mean... We got it. You can calm down a little. It's just...
Correct. You don't have to put your whole ass into it like that. You pull it back a little bit. But on the other hand, I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah.
King.
There's just so many times where I just tell people in Discord chat or something while I was playing the other. They just said this really weird. They just said this really weird. It's funny, so I'm glad. But it is like the one thing where it's like, everything in this is so solid and cool, but it's still a little silly. Chinese is a difficult language. It is. And voice actors, on this like limited time scale, sure. But I really think if these names are difficult to say, you should have settled on a median pronunciation that everyone uses. Otherwise, you have most of the people calling the peerless warrior of the era Louis Boo.
Louis!
Bada bing! Come on.
Now, see, the thing is, so audio wise, it's definitely not all bad. The music is incredible, like always, but they do the dynamic thing in this one so good. They have a low T and a high T version. They have a version for big charges. It's so good.
When you get to the end of the stage and it's like the strings and the horns come in on top of like what the guitars and stuff, it's like, oh.
It's like, this is fucking incredible.
Some of the songs they remade, like the default version, isn't quite as good. So like Capricious Wind, the Battle of Chirby track from Dynasty Warriors 8, is incredible. The regular version in this one is good. Like, it's still a great arrangement. The way especially it mixes like the leitmotifs of the various kingdoms into it. When you turn things around on that stage and you get the triumphant version, oh my god.
It's so good.
And that's especially helped because like this is a major battle. But in most Dynasty Warriors games, this is the middle of people's stories. Like a lot of the major characters the story focuses on don't die or end their journey at Chirby. This game, because it doesn't cover the whole story, if you're playing as Wu, it ends at Chirby. So it's a climactic major event. And it's like a big challenge, a big jump-in challenge. And it just feels really like you're being pushed to your limits of like everything you know and like you've built up to at this point. If you're playing as the Kingdoms of Shu or Wei, you do a mission after that, focusing on Cao Cao's escape through Huarong Path. Additionally, they do some changes to the story presentation so that if you're playing as the Shu side, during the battle of Huarong Path, Cao Cao is set to get away and then he runs into Guan Yu from the Kingdom of Shu. But since he previously did a favor for Guan Yu, like a major favor, like spared his life and the lives of Liu Bei's family, he lets him go. And this on its own is like a sort of like, oh, I owe a favor, I'm a man of honor. But it's also kind of like, if you just killed him right there, wouldn't it be fine? But then they actually have dialogue where Zhuge Liang says, I purposely put Guan Yu on that path because I knew he would spare Cao Cao, and we need the Kingdom of Wei to act as a counterbalance to the Kingdom of Wu, because we're still developing the Kingdom of Shu. So we need two other kingdoms to create a balance. If we wipe out Cao Cao here and Wei is destroyed, Wu will overtake us. Like, they make that very clear. The story itself is told way better. Like, 7 had great presentation, but it covered a big swath of time.
7's presentation is very good. Origins' presentation is far better, and it's not even close.
Yeah. I mentioned, they have some weird lift lap stuff, but one thing I noticed that's really big in cutscenes is characters are rarely ever in a neutral state. Even in higher budget games like Monster Hunter Wilds or something, there'll be times when other characters in the cutscene are just standing there dead-eyed, not doing anything. They never do that in Dynasty Warriors Origins. It's really genuinely worth complimenting because not enough games do it, and they put in the effort.
A lot of the cutscenes in Origins remind me a lot of the cutscenes in Neo.
Yeah. The original protagonist is also used to like some good effect with like, this is a favorite move of Koei's, I realized, is to have your character be part of some secret organization that's been mostly destroyed, so they can just have a few characters like play off that drama. But it's also fun because then historical figures can have a little extra depth to them. Junyo is like another strategist for the Wei forces. He had his role in history, but he's not that interesting in the games usually. But when you meet him, he's like, oh, you're a guardian of peace. It's like, oh, okay, so this guy's not a rube and not like a dull guy. He like has some insight and he has some knowings of like these deeper workings of like the secrets of the Han court. I just think it's really solid. Like, I feel like I know these characters better, and I also know how much they want to have sex with twinks a lot more.
So yes, definitely for real, play Dynasty Warriors Origins. That game is incredible.
Yeah, and so that's it. We're caught up to modern day. That was quite an episode, and there's still more stuff to look forward to next year. January sees a major DLC for Dynasty Warriors Origins, which looks like it'll be letting you take a path with like Chun Zhao or Lui Bu. Also, they announced a Dynasty Warriors 3. They called it a remaster. It's a remake.
It looks like it's being remade in Origins.
It's actually being done in Unreal, which is confusing. It's strange, yeah, because they refined the Origins engine from the Dynasty Warriors 9 rec on PS4 to the Dynasty Warriors Origins engine, which is incredible. I guess maybe they have junior developers they're trying to train up. Either way, this is for the 25th anniversary of the series. It survived this long, and it's the thing that like now, like back when I started the podcast, part of the reason I started it is like Hyrule Warriors was coming out. And a bunch of people who weren't used to Musou games were like, oh, I thought this would just be like a Zelda action game, but it's like fighting a bunch of people and grinding? This is stupid. And I'm like, you're stupid.
Look back now and realize how dumb and wrong you sound if you were one of those people.
But yeah, I mean, luckily, like, appreciation of the Musou series has grown quite a bit over the decade. So I think at the time I was like, I need to stick up for this series. And it doesn't, I mean, with Origins, it doesn't need it at all anymore. I think if you like thought of this series as just this purely iterative, simple game series that was just, yeah, to some extent, a game coming out that often is like a financial thing, but it's not just that. Like, it was something that took chances and experimented, made changes and evolved over time. And what I just think is like very unique in games. There are not a lot of games. The closest I can think of is sports games, and that's an industry that's, I guess I could put it this way: no one in the era of the Three Kingdoms is going to get any more canceled than they already are. You know? So like that this element of it is not ever going to be present. I just think that this series, like, you know, it's historical, but it's over the top, it's smart, and it's dumb. Technically simple, but technically complex. And, you know, there's a period of time where other people tried to copy it, and they've all fallen away, and now it's just back to Dynasty Warriors ruling the roost. I would like more people to try and challenge it because it's a cool genre, but it's difficult to pull off. The reason why you don't see it more is it's hard. That's why there aren't tons of indie Dynasty Warriors games. That's why there aren't a lot of industry copies. Capcom, I mean, I think they could pull it off technically and monetarily, but I don't know if they have the willpower or something. I don't know why they aren't doing it, but, you know, there's like a Fate Extella, which I thought was rather poor, to be honest, by Marvel. It's like these companies, I don't know if anyone went into it half-cocked, but if you thought it was easy, like, it's not. That's why the series had, you know, so many different aspects of itself to balance itself against. How much is the simulation? How much is the action? How much of it is a meta progression thing? They threw out and redid the combat system like 3 times.
Thinking about the like last high-profile contender against Dynasty Warriors was probably 99 Nights.
Yeah, that game's not very fun.
Those games are not good. Neither one of them are very good at all. Tat Fuji is a treasure, though. Like you said, it's a hard genre to replicate. People think that these games are kind of brainless, and for their money, you can be if you really want to, but if you do that, you're not really getting the most out of it.
Yeah, and we keep saying this is the good shit, because it's almost all the good shit.
Because it's all the good shit.
Except for the ones on handheld Nintendo systems. Those are pretty bad.
They can't do it. I guess that was broken when they ported Dynasty Warriors 8 to the Switch. Yeah. That's kind of cheating, I feel.
Imagine they just like took a lot of features out for no reason. It's like, look, we made an agreement a long time ago with Nintendo.
We gotta kneecap it, otherwise it'll be too powerful.
All right, and I think that'll do it for episode 10 of We Thought About Games. 10 years on.
We finally talked about games. The games.
If you haven't caught up yet, that's your bad. I don't know what to tell you.
You've had a lot of time. Get on it. Come on.
All right, Bo. So if people want to find you, where can they find you?
I am on Blue Sky very intermittently. That's Dot Hospital. I'm not doing a whole lot, but I'm thinking I'm going to get back to streaming soon.
Yeah. I have a link tree, Beam Splash X. All the stuff we mentioned will be linked in the show notes. If you like the podcast, that's great. I think I mentioned like rating this. I don't care. It's been one episode a year for a decade. So this isn't really it for Muso. I mean, I'm probably going to regret saying that, seeing how we're at 4 hours and 40 minutes for this recording session.
Well, you know.
But we mentioned all these spin-offs, but I couldn't find someone who played all of them. That would be a very tough ask. I haven't played all of them myself. So the next episode will be We Thought About Games 10-2, and it's going to focus on the spin-offs. It's going to be structured very differently. Will it be the Dynasty Warriors 6 of this podcast or the Dynasty Warriors Origins? I guess we'll find out.
Finally, a podcast with the Renbu system.
If I stop talking, I'll lose interest with my podcast. And I'll have to talk really fast to build it back up. And then I smash open a pot and it has wine that gives me max Renbu instantly, where I become interesting.
Okay, so taking a note here, get real drunk.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening. Thanks, Bo, for joining me on this one.
Absolutely.
Long time in the making, and I'm glad to have you on, as always.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, thanks for listening, and keep thinking.
Can't quit this, my jersey. Can't quit this, my jersey.